Good evening, everyone. I hear an echo. I'd like to welcome you to the regular council meeting for Monday, June 1st. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I do have all members of council in attendance this evening. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. If you are able, please stand for the national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I'll go to Director Malanjukalo for the Legal Advisory Committee report, the closed meeting on May 22nd.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, through you. On May 22nd, 2026 at 10 a.m., the Advisory Committee Board met and closed pursuant to sections 239(2)(e) and F to discuss a tribunal hearing related to 195, 197, and 199 Bryan Avenue. And that is the extent of my report.
Thank you, Director Malanjukalo. Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council this evening? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to declare conflict of interest on item 19.1.1.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. That is noted. Looking for a mover and a seconder of the adoption of the regular council meeting for June 1st, and it's going to be as amended. That we add delegates 10.7.1, Mr. Mike Pichet, 10.7.2, Mr. Wing-On Lee. He's here virtually for questions, I believe, or can be. We're going to add 19.1.1, Mr. Kirk Churchill, and we're going to move him up. And then we need to also move up 10.10, the discussion on the PV Mart capacity. And we're making sure that we move up 10.7, the Mr. Pichet with the zoning on County Road 50. And then we're going to move up the transient vendor license 19.1.1 because we have people in the audience and some of the other reports can wait. So we have all of that moved by Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor Maguire-Blaze. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes for the regular council meeting for May 19th. And we need to actually adopt these minutes as amended to have a correction in the minutes on 10.3.1 Horizon Investments to Horizon, it's Horizon Investments Holding Inc. to Horizon Group. So we need a mover of those corrected minutes, please. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Moving on to, we have no public presentations, no unfinished business. We'll go to reports from administration, and this is the 10.10, the PV Mart. So we'll go to that, and we'll go to Director Gerard.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and through you, administration is seeking council's authorization to allocate sanitary service and capacity to 401 Talbot Street North, the former PV Mart property. which is located immediately adjacent to and outside of the Town of Essex municipal boundary. The owner has requested access to the town's sanitary sewer system to support a proposed recreational and commercial sports-oriented development. The concept includes indoor sports turf, an ice pad addition, food and beverage services, locker rooms, bowling, pickleball, golf simulation, and related commercial uses. Administration recognizes that the development may provide broader economic benefits to Essex, including employment, sports, tourism, visitor traffic, spin-off activity for local businesses, and enhanced recreational amenities. However, because the property is outside of the town's boundaries, servicing is not automatic and requires formal council direction. The report also recognizes that the town's sanitary system has finite remaining capacity. For that reason, administration is recommending that any approval be conditional on the confirmation of sanitary flows, detailed engineering review, confirmation that there are no adverse system impacts, and the establishment of a defined maximum capacity allocation. The recommendation before you is to receive the report, authorize the required sanitary servicing allocation, and direct administration to enter into a servicing agreement with the property owner and the municipality of Lakeshore. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Gerard. Before I go to council, is this the only time council would see this, or would council see this as a finalized agreement?
Through the chair. So the recommendation before you is to allow us to start negotiating the agreement. I would defer to our director of legal on whether or not that has to be approved by council or the mayor or the CAO. And then for the actual allocation of servicing, this would be the actual moment in time where council would authorize that allocation.
So through the chair, unless we have delegated authority, which I'm not sure that we do, I can go away and check. We would need to come back and get approval.
Okay, thank you. Councilor McGuire, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I raised my hand prematurely because you said it would have to come back to a council. My question was, if we're asking them to do a plan to tell us how much capacity it's going to require, I don't know how we can approve that without knowing the capacity. So, now that it is going to come back to council, then we can see how much the capacity is, and then we can make our final approval. I'm okay with that. Thank you.
CAO Drusevich.
Through the chair, part of the background and reason why we came to council preemptively was so that we didn't invest a lot of time heading down this path with agreements and negotiation for an ultimate denial. So we wanted to just feel the appetite of council to make sure that the investment and the time was appropriate.
Thank you for that additional information. I think what they're planning at the PV Mart through the chair sounds amazing. I know that it's located in Lakeshore, but it will benefit the town of Essex and its residents. So I'm really excited to see it happen. I just would like to know what our current capacity is, and if there's room, and if we allow this, is there any risk of us having to say no to properties within the Essex Center? Would we have to say no to them because of this? But otherwise, I think it's really cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor McGuire, please. Councilor Verbeek.
Thanks through you, Madam Mayor. I will echo that. I think it's a great, it looks like it could be a great facility. And I'm glad that we're going to get the report back. I would definitely support, I do support you moving forward and getting this information and working with Lakeshore and the proponent. If it's not going to put a massive strain or any restrictions on developments in Essex, I would certainly support this endeavor.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Verbeek. Any other questions from any members of council? One that I think we're going to hear out there is, are they going to have the same rate as Essex residents, or is there going to be like a premium rate for an outsider?
Through the chair. So as outlined in the report, we do intend to have that conversation as part of the negotiations for the agreement.
Okay, thank you. Sounds like a lot of jobs for our community. Councilor Meady?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Is this one of the times where we could ask Lakeshore if maybe we could just welcome PV Mart into Essex Center and then take the land and the building and then have a wonderful business and then new residents of Essex?
Thank you, Councilor Mady. At some of the preliminary conversations that was discussed, but it's a lengthy process. So, and we don't want to drag out the process any longer. So with that being said, I'm going to get the motion on the floor that the environmental services report be received and that council authorize administration to allocate sanitary servicing capacity necessary to facilitate the private development proposal described within the report, and that council direct administration to draft an agreement, a service agreement satisfactory to the clerk and CAO with the owner of 401 Talbot Street North, the former PV Mart, in the municipality of Lakeshore, and bring said agreement back to council that sets the terms and conditions for providing servicing capacity to the property. So it's a little bit modified than in the report. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, any other questions, comments? All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Oh, I have to see where we are now. We have so many amendments. 10.7, we're going on to the zoning on County Road 50. Mr. Pichet? Or are we going to have administration walk through the report first? Okay. Hang on there, Mr. Pichet. You can come and sit up here if you want a front row seat. Mr. Bohr or Director Chadwick?
Thank you, through the chair. To summarize the proposal for 80 County Road 50, the applicant is proposing to construct a 3-story mixed-use building with 8 motel units and 18 dwelling units in an on-site parking area, which will accommodate 33 parking spaces, which will also include loading, barrier-free spaces, and bicycle spaces. The applicant requires a site-specific amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit the motel use and site-specific building regulations such as permissions for dwelling units on the ground floor level, an increase to the building height to accommodate an architectural feature on the sidewall of the building, and a reduction in the building setback from the property line shared with the adjacent Grove Motel property. That property line is considered the rear lot line. Public feedback on this proposal was received at an open house, a proponent-led open house on December 2nd, 2025. It was also received at a special council meeting where public delegations were heard on April 27th of this year. And it was also received on May 19th at the last regular council meeting. On May 19th, council provisionally adopted bylaw 2541 for one reading. Since that time and at the May 19th meeting, comments from members of the public and council continue to be received on the development proposal. A comment summary has been prepared in response to those comments and those questions that we have received since May 19th on the application. The comments include support for the development, and they also include concerns with the development. And where concerns were raised on the development, the main issue continues to be parking, the use of the commercial space in the building as a motel, and the massing and the look of the building. So as administration has stated in past reports and presentations on the development complies with the parking standards that are set out for the proposed use in the municipal zoning bylaw. The motel use is a permitted commercial use in the Colchester secondary plan for the Main Street area. And the development complies with the general intent of the Colchester secondary plan with respects to its height, its setbacks, its parking, its landscaping, and the general character of the area. Therefore, administration continues to recommend approval of bylaw 2541. Thank you, and we remain available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bohr. I just want to thank administration for the extra details tonight. Mr. Pichet, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. To the mayor, deputy mayor, council, I thank you for this opportunity to appear in front of you for this important meeting. I'm a 26-year resident of Colchester and co-founder of a community support group called Colchester Matters. And I'd like to discuss some of the concerns that Rita brought up a few seconds ago. Understand, other than the Grove Motel and various wineries that have been constructed over the last couple of years, little development has taken place in Colchester in decades, and many residents are uneasy and by rights concerned that the right decisions are being made tonight, I hope. Here's a synopsis of some of the most common concerns in my comments. Why another motel? Our town's zoning bylaws require main floor commercial space in Colchester, but any commercial space in Colchester at this point in time is a risky proposition. This developer would likely want apartments only, but that requires a costly and lengthy official plan change. Since tourism is a growing business, motel rooms may be the only viable option. In the future, commercial space may change, but in the interim, we still get 18 new and needed apartments in Colchester. Do we need an apartment building is another common question. Well, think of this. Short-term rentals have decimated the homes for rent market. In the county of Essex, including Windsor, there are almost 1,100 short-term rentals that are registered. AirDNA, an online short-term rental consulting service, says there are actually at least 1,880 units in the county of Essex. That said, almost 1,900 rental homes and apartments in this county, only recently in the last 5 to 10 years, are now not available for families to live in. This is a housing catastrophe, and it's right across North America and probably beyond that. So where do people who are just starting out, who can't afford to purchase a home, live? Well, here's one small change. A new building right here in Colchester, which adds 18 rental units for retirees and small families. This is a clear benefit to our community, and I believe a welcome one. Where will new tenants and motel users park? Well, the number is closely controlled by the town of Essex. We have parking calculations, zoning requirements, and we understand that this building meets all of the current requirements for the town. Does it fit Colchester's vibe? We get this question frequently. In your mind's eye, visualize Colchester's Murdoch Street, goes from Erie to Dunn, west to Dunn. There are 4 commercial buildings and 1 water treatment plant with a 200-foot cell tower behind it. 3 of those existing buildings were gas stations at one point in time. So think of the design of a gas station. So surely the new building will add some flair, just like the Grove Motel. This new apartment building will only add a positive look and feel to Colchester, in my opinion. Will the noise and lights be disruptive? No doubt. The front of the building will be lit to some degree, but much like the Grove Motel next door. But the town of Essex has site plan control to prevent them from overdoing it. As far as noise, we've yet to hear any noise complaints from the Grove Motel over the last 2 years. And with effective management, this new motel should be the same way. Is walkability affected? This building has access to a beach, a marina, a variety store, gas station, 3 restaurants, all within 5 minutes of walking on sidewalks or the Seawatts pathway. There are only 4 sidewalks in Colchester, period. The north and south of County Road 50, about 300 feet on Sullivan Street. Thank you. And 1 through the park on Jackson Street. This building will not encroach on any of them. It remains walkable. And where will those visitors park now that that parking lot is no longer going to be available? Well, the private owners of this parking lot property had temporarily allowed the town of Essex to use it for parking, and now they wish to develop it. The only time that these lots were ever used for parking were the afternoons of sunny weekends in the summer.
Mr. Pisha,
At
I'm just
no
going to
other
ask,
times.
I'm just going to ask, we're almost running out of time, so
Thank you. At no other times has there been a need for parking on these lots. That said, the town of Essex has a plan for parking, and hopefully we'll be dealing with the loss of these spaces as we move forward. Will these apartments be affordable is another question. All rental properties in Ontario are subject to market conditions and landlords determine rates based upon supply and demand. This building will be absolutely no different. And can our infrastructure handle the changes? Concerns about hydro interruption seems to be less of a concern now. Flooding in this area is seldom a problem as long as storm sewers are maintained, and changes to traffic patterns will be minimal at best. Council, I've attempted to answer as many of these questions or provide comments about them and concerns. I think there are as few concerns that are justifiable. It is a change. Some people don't want any change whatsoever, but I think this is a change in the right direction. And I look forward to your approval of the second and third reading of the site-specific zoning amendment. And I also look forward to any questions and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Piche. If you could just, you can have a seat, but stay in case anybody has any questions for you. Councillor Verbeek, thank you. Okay, any members of council? Councillor Hammond and Councillor Meady.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. There's just one question that is getting me, and it's because of our parking report. And I realize that this has nothing to do with that parking report, but I'd like to use the parking report as an example. And obviously, the parking report has pointed out we've made a mistake. So I just would like to know, with the revised parking report that we're looking at tonight, if this erection would still fall within the guidelines with the new parking guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hammond. Director Chadwick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To you, Councillor Hammond. So the parking report that you're referring to tonight is a study that was undertaken specifically for low-density residential uses, that being single-detached, semi-detached townhomes and ADUs. In 2023, Council amended the zoning bylaw already for multi-unit residential. That was that includes apartments and condominium style multi-unit. And then just this past December, we corrected an oversight in our zoning bylaw to also match that parking requirement for combined use buildings. So this application meets those regulations. We inform the applicant well in advance. And so they already meet those requirements from 2023. And just to clarify, today's parking study or the review doesn't include another review of multi-unit.
Thank you, Director Chadwick. Any follow-up, Councillor Hammond?
Wonderful. Yeah, that doesn't really give me the numbers I was looking for. Just it seems to be an avoidance of answering the question. My reasoning for the question is because I realize this is with the conditions we have set previously, but going forward, I don't want to exasperate our parking problems in Colchester anymore if this is going to ultimately reduce parking spots. Does it make any sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, this has to have so many parking spots for the building as it is. But if we push forward with 2 recommendation parking spots for a dwelling unit, then does it still meet those standards, or is it behind, and by how much behind?
Our CEO will assist. Yeah.
through the chair, so we're talking about two different types of developments tonight. So the application at hand is for mixed use. We've already studied that and brought forward findings in 2023. Later on tonight, you're going to see for low density residential, which is not this type of development. So in 2023, changes were made to adjust parking for this specific type of development, two totally separate types.
Okay, Councillor Meany?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious, what's our vacancy rate for the commercial properties in Colchester right now?
I'm not sure we would have that right now. There isn't really a lot of commercial properties.
I'd agree. There isn't a lot of commercial properties and all of them are filled. Might be a sign that we need more commercial properties and not more motel rooms.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Councillor Hammond. So I know that this is, as Mr. Piche, our delegate said, this is change is hard, especially in Colchester. We do know what we went through I was here when we built the Grove Motel. I've spent a lot of time since the last council meeting, and our administration brought forward a lot of the concerns and went through them point by point. I've also, in the previous meeting tonight, we did ask administration to start to see if they could also track some of the parking at the Colchester Schoolhouse. So part of the parking study was to develop a sidewalk along Sullivan Street to guide people to park at the schoolhouse property. Parking is an issue in Colchester. Parking is an issue when you go to an Essex 73s game though. And there's probably as many hot days in Colchester as there is Essex 73s games where you have a parking issue and people are parking everywhere. So some of those times, you know, if we were to buy this as a parking lot, it was listed, I think, around $1 million. $200,000 is a 1% tax increase. So we're looking at a 5% tax increase if the town was to buy this, which we didn't do because we have a lot of priorities, and parking is one of them, but it's not a top priority when you compare it to flooding and roads. So tonight I will be supporting this application. I do believe we've talked about it quite a bit. I do believe that people can park at the schoolhouse, but they just don't know it's there, or they just don't want to walk there. So I think that if we work on signage and marketing the schoolhouse property, I don't really think it's ever really at capacity. I do know that people, you know, we're not talking about Colchester Bay. If we were talking about Colchester Bay, I'd be saying a whole lot of different things. But we're talking about apartments in Colchester, new apartments, new rentals. And I think that that is something that we need. I know that a motel might be something that we don't need, but that's something that a developer wants to bring forward. Just like we don't tell a pizza place, you can't come into Essex. We have a lot of pizza places in Essex. And if a new one popped up, we couldn't, if the PV Mart wanted to sell pizza, we wouldn't tell them, no, you cannot sell pizza. You know, may the best pizza win. So I think those are my comments, and I'll go to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So I'd like to report, thank you, Mr. Piche, for presenting today. It's again, it's nice to hear some positive feedback from Colchester on that as well. So I will support it. And I just want to for maybe if it'll help Councillor Hammond, oh, he's talking. So I know you got to go to him next. So I'm ready to move it when the time's appropriate after you're done with Councillor Hammond. But I just wanted to touch base because I think you were pretty good with explaining it, but I don't know that maybe no matter what we do with that parking issue we're dealing with later, it won't change this one. It doesn't change. It won't change it going forward, going backwards. It's going to be the same because it's dealt with differently. So just in case you didn't catch that, I just know that it's maybe a bit confusing, that portion of it. So hopefully that helps out. So
Okay, Councillor Hammond, I'm going to go to any members of council that haven't spoke yet, and then I'll come back to you. Councillor Allard?
I just wanted to add the Colchester Market that is usually at the schoolhouse has been canceled for the year. So we'll get probably a good idea of what the parking looks like this year.
Thank you, Councillor Allard. Councillor Hammond?
Yes, a couple more questions now. First one directed to Jason here, and he doesn't think we need more hotel rooms. I asked him, would he prefer losing more residential homes to Airbnbs as opposed to more hotel rooms, because I would rather see the other. I don't need an answer, but to Deputy Mayor Shepley's comment regarding, give me again, the parking. What's the difference between a dwelling unit and apartment? And what would, how, like, what would be the difference as far as parking goes between an apartment and a dwelling unit?
Okay, thank you, Counselor Hammond. We'll go to Director Chadwick.
Thanks again, Mayor Bondi. So Councillor Hammond, a dwelling unit is a place of housekeeping, essentially, a place to dwell, to live. The parking requirement for a multi-unit or combined use building, an apartment, a condominium, is based on the number of bedrooms, whereas the parking requirement for a single detached dwelling or a semi-detached dwelling or a townhome is based on the number of dwelling units. So currently, the parking space is 1 per dwelling unit in the town of Essex for a single detached dwelling or a semi or a townhome. But the apartment style that this particular application is proposing is based on number of bedrooms.
Okay, I have Counselor Guerin has not spoke yet, and then we'll go back to Counselor Mady, and then I'll get a motion on the floor.
Mr. Mayor, I think Dr. Chadwick answered what I was gonna say.
Counselor Mady?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So as far as like rental rooms as opposed to residential, this is still gonna be a commercial mixed-use building in the end. And I do believe that in a commercial building, our STRU bylaw allows STRUs to be in commercial buildings. So it's not like we're saving residential units. In fact, they could become Airbnbs and the whole building could be a motel then. Unless you have a way of saving the residential units.
Just a point of order, council members, you're not
Sorry.
allowed to discuss matters
Uh,
amongst yourself.
So, as far as the question goes, do we have to take the entire proposal? The developer's asking for a few things in there. One of them that keeps getting brought up is the look of the building and if it fits in Colchester or not. In our official plan and our new Colchester specific plan, they talk about gable style roofs and not having a large parapet on it. Are we able just to say no to the parapet and pass everything else, or do we have to pass it all at once?
Director Chadwick?
Thanks, Mayor Bondi. Just to confirm if I understand, stop me at any point through the mayor, of course, to Councillor Mady. So the Colchester Secondary Plan, the current in effect CSP, calls for urban design guidelines. They are guidelines. They are not mandated in terms of zoning bylaw regulations. And so they are put forward to an applicant at any time to be considered during a development application. In this regard, the applicant has conformed to most of the guidelines. And the one that they did not conform to was the Tudor style. So administration felt that because the Colchester Secondary Plan is currently under review, and we have heard loud and clear from members of the public as well as councillors, that the Tudor style is not something that we would want to move forward with in our revised Colchester Secondary Plan. It was accepted to administration or acceptable and deemed acceptable to administration that the development not include that style, similar to the Grove Motel just next door, which is not Tudor. In terms of whether or not council can approve a part of the application, what is before you tonight is the zoning bylaw amendment only and not the site plan control where, you know, certain aspects of technical aspects to a development are considered. And so if you are making a decision tonight, it would be based on land use and the regulations associated with the land use, the height, the use itself, the motels, for example. So hopefully that answers your questions.
Thank you. Yeah, almost. So if we decide that we didn't want to allow a taller building, can we say no to the taller building, but still say yes to everything else?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor. So I may pass it to Manager Jabour in just a moment. council would have to render a decision one way or another, or we would encourage council to render a decision and the reasons why. And so administration has performed a fulsome review on the application before you. If you deny certain aspects of the application, there of course are risks to that, but the application before you is for the increase in height just for the parapet and not for the remainder of the building. So just to be clear with council, as per the report, the increase in height is not for the entire building. It's only for the architectural feature.
Okay, at this time, I'll go to Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Like to move the report.
Okay, so that is moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek, that the Development Services Report be received and that bylaw 2541, site-specific building regulations for the lands known as 80 County Road 50 be read a second and third time and finally passed on June 1st. And with that, we'll also receive the delegation of Mr. Pichet. So all in favor? Opposed? I will go to the clerk for clarification if that passed 2 readings.
So through the chair, because we were looking for 2 readings today, we needed a 60% vote, which means 6 votes, so it did not pass 2 readings.
Okay, at this point, I'll look for a mover and a seconder that we read the bylaw a second time. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek. And we've talked about this a lot. All in favor? And that is carried. Opposed? We have 2 opposed, and that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Pichet, for coming. Moving on, we're going to pull up 19.1.1. Director Malangikolo, do you want the delegates to go first, or do you want to recap some of the changes? Okay, come on up, our delegates, and sit in the hot seat. Yeah, and our Director Malangikolo is going to just recap changes from the previous meeting, and then you will have 5 minutes to address council.
So through the chair, 2 weeks ago, administration came to council with the proposed bylaw 2499, which is our transient vendor bylaw. At that time, administration explained that this was an update to the bylaw. Not very many changes were made. The main purpose of bringing this updated bylaw is because it was previously attached to our taxi bylaw, which had been already taken out of that bylaw, removed from that bylaw. So this bylaw needed to be separated itself so that transient vendors were taken care of in its own bylaw. Since that meeting 2 weeks ago, where it was read 2 times, we did receive some feedback from councillors. We're bringing it back for a 3rd reading. Some of the things that we wanted to clarify for the councillors before we hear the 3rd reading tonight is first, even though this bylaw is called a transient vendor bylaw, the bylaw does not allow the vendors to be mobile. The vendors need to operate from a fixed location. So they have to have an agreement to operate from that fixed location, and they have to meet all of the health and safety requirements and insurance requirements at that location in order to operate. So that was one of the misconceptions of the bylaw, was that the vendors were able to be mobile, but they're not. The other thing that we did is we removed the part-time vendor license. We thought that it was not council's appetite to accept that part-time vendor license. To clarify though, if somebody wants to be a part-time vendor, so to come to Essex temporarily to sell, again, they would need to comply with all the requirements, which means that they would have to have a property to operate from. It could only be from one property. And they would have to meet all of the insurance and safety requirements in order to operate. They could receive their license for $410 and operate for as long as they wanted to. So if they wanted to operate for a month, they could still do that. The only difference between the full-time and the part-time license is that we would require the full fee of $410 and not the reduced fee of $205. So would still allow for temporary vendors, but they'd have to pay the full licensing fee. That's pretty much the only change. So I know that we have a delegate that wants to speak to you about some other potential changes. We're available for questions after the delegate speaks.
Okay, thank you, Director Malangikolo. Welcome, Mr. Churchill. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I do want to thank the mayor, deputy mayor, and council for allowing me to speak on this transient vendor license bylaw. I'll introduce myself. I'm Kirk Churchill. I used to own Maria's Restaurant in Amherstburg from 2015 to 2021. And then COVID happened and kind of really put the ability for us to make money out of the way. So we then sold the property and bought into Nats Wraps in Aspen, bought our own food truck, partially because they opened homeschooling and we just couldn't handle that with all 5 kids at home. So we bought a few laptops and a food truck and kind of moved on. And then from there, we sold the food truck and bought into Beaver Tails franchise. Now we've had I guess the luck to be called in from the town. So we've worked with the Rotary Club in Harrow for the Harrow Fireworks, which I understand is a CERT event. And then we did the Essex Fun Fest, again, a CERT event. And then we participated in the Harrow Open Streets, which we were informed is also a CERT event. To the final one where we were invited to the Home Hardware in town here in Essex to kind of just bring out and see if we can create a little excitement for their location, which we did, and we had a great event. And then we received a letter from, and I don't remember last name, so I apologize. It was a bylaw officer by the name of Mike, who we received basically just telling us that, we're not in compliance, and that we needed to rectify that because the next time we'd be fined, which I then responded right away, apologizing, saying sorry, we're not in compliance. We would like to become into compliance. And what do we do? Mike actually gave me a call. We discussed it and then came into the problem that we have. We signed a franchise agreement with Beaver Tails. Part of that agreement, it means we have to do 150 or more events, public events, as well as we cannot stay in one location. That's part of the franchise agreement in itself. We find that the bylaw is a little bit prohibitive for like a business like us, or really any other food truck that does want to move around. I looked up the word transient, and it means lasting only for a short time, temporary, staying in a place for a brief time before moving on. Unfortunately, that's not a transient license that I thought we were looking at. This transient license that Essex offers is only one location. So that being said, with what we do, if I was to go to, let's say I get a call from, which happened, the Home Hardware here in Essex, and then did purchase a vendor license, and then got a call from the Home Hardware in Harrow, we would not be able to move to that location and feed and work for that town or the town of Harrow, because we don't have the ability to do that without a secondary location, or sorry, a secondary license. Sorry. And that being said, if we are a mobile unit, so what we do is we try and enhance and create some excitement. And so when we go to these events, I find that we do create a lot of excitement. We have people that come out of the house that normally wouldn't. Since COVID, there are people that just don't feel comfortable coming out of the house. So we're in an outdoor environment. We're feeding people. And what we do, we create excitement. We get these people out and we get the town moving and everything else. We go to little towns and they just absolutely love us, big lineups, so we are doing well. But at the same time, I have a full-time job. This isn't something that's going to be a make rich thing. We do this kind of for the love of it. Like, we get to meet new people. We get to bring out a product that we absolutely love, and we get to correspond with everybody. That's kind of what our goal is as a transient vendor. So we like to go out, show everybody the product, and create some excitement in the town. We have yet to ever have a location that we haven't created excitement. We haven't had some people come in, and if we get sat beside somebody that does exactly the same thing, I think we would enhance the business. What else have we got here? The other thing with the license, I do understand that we do have to go through all the proper safety requirements, and that makes sense. As Beaver Tails, we go through it. We're above and beyond. We try and do double what's asked of us to make sure that, our hoods are properly cleaned, not the one time a year, twice a year. Our machines are completely always activated. We always find a way to make sure that they're up to date, and we are always in compliance with the safety end of things.
Just,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. If you
Okay,
could just wrap
I
it
will
up
try
and
and wrap this up as much as possible. What I'm looking for is another option. I want an option where we're going to be able to move around without having to buy a license for each location. And going back to the part-time temporary license at a discounted price, That does work for us because then we'd be able to see if that location would be the proper one that we might want to come back to. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Hang tight. We'll see if we have any questions. Counselor Verbeek.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for providing the iconic beaver tails to Essex. Much appreciated. I thought I was coming to support this as this new transient vendor bylaw as presented. So I guess I better get some clarity because this is new information that I want to get my head around. If the proprietor of Beaver Tails or anyone else purchases the vendor's license to set up at, say, Home Hardwares, but then they're invited out to some cert events like the Fun Fest and Stroll by Santa or, car show or something. Is adopting this as it is going to restrict them in that kind of movement?
So through the chair, if they are going to operate as cert event, that's okay. That doesn't require the transient vendor license because that event gets cleared through our cert team and all the insurance and food safety handling requirements are done by the person who's organizing that event. So it's up to them to make sure that happens, but we don't require the license at that time.
Thank you, Mayor Ronnie. And just for a point of clarity for council, cert events are events that are held on municipal properties. They're not regulated on private properties. So only our town-owned properties, we go through the cert process.
Counselor Verbeek.
And one more question to our clerk. Would this, it's not like anybody's banging down the doors here in Essex to set up these services as far as mobile food services. We've only ever really had a couple. I'm hoping we make them feel welcome and can support them in any way possible. However, my question is this, I'm pretty sure I know the answer. They would be restricted to a address, right? Like he's saying that they sometimes like to service at both Home Hardwares that are within our municipality, but at different addresses.
So through the chair, you're right. The vendor would require a license for each address, but they can get multiple licenses. So if the vendor wanted to, for example, get 3 licenses, they could do that as long as they met the requirement at each address. And they would have to pay that vendor license, so that $410 3 times. So I think that's why you're hearing the delegate say that maybe if the part-time license was reinstalled, then maybe it would allow him to, for $205, get a part-time license at some other properties and be able to be mobile instead of having a full-time license at more than one property and having to incur all that cost.
Okay, I have Counselor Mady, then Counselor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So I'm guessing the cost of licensing first part of the cost is to make sure that the vendor is going to be in compliance with everything. And a secondary part of it is to make sure that the location they're going to is going to be safe. Like is that why we're making it a permanent thing?
So through the chair, the licensing fee can only cover our administrative costs in performing the licensing function and in enforcing the licensing requirement. So that's what that $410 is meant for. In order to do that, we do have to check certain things. For example, that there is a current lease agreement that allows them to be on the property, that they have the food safe handling certificate from the health unit, that they meet the insurance requirements. So there's a $2 million general liability insurance requirement. And then they also need to get a fire inspection. And we need to confirm that happens. So that fee is meant to offset the cost of confirming all of those requirements.
Thank you. And then through you, Madam Mayor, is there a way that the vendor could purchase their license? We can inspect their truck, we can inspect their services, make sure it's all good. And then not have to pay another full license fee for each property that.
So through the chair, in the initial report that was presented to council, One of what our manager of licensing did was give you some examples of what other licensing structures look like throughout the county. And in Windsor, what they do is they have a full price primary license and then a half priced secondary license. So if you're operating at multiple locations, you get your first license for $410, and then they reduce that license fee to I think it's $200 for your each additional location. And that's exact for the reason why you're mentioning is because the second and third and after that, the continuing inspections are less than the original would be.
Councilor Meady?
Is there any appetite to add that to our licensing then? And would that help you out?
Oh, hang on.
Sorry, I
There,
guess that was one
that would be council, that would be up to council. Council could direct that. I'm sure the delegate would like that. Let's go, we'll keep going around. Council McGuire, please.
Thanks through the chair. Could a transient vendor set up in a residential area, like an apartment parking lot?
So through the chair, they are not allowed under the licensing scheme to set up in a residential neighborhood to make sales. What we do allow is, for example, if let's say it's a birthday party and the owners invite the transient vendor to come and attend at the birthday party, we don't police that. But if they were in a residential area and they're making commercial sales to third parties, then that would not be allowed.
And then, thank you through the chair. And then the way that it's set up right now, it doesn't prohibit the vendor from leaving the area and going to another municipality and coming back. They have that license for 1 full year. They can come back to that place as many times as they want and without having to be rechecked. So they get a license if I'm going to use Beaver Tails because he's sitting here. He sets up at Home Hardware. He has a license or permit through Home Hardware. He has permission, pays the fee, and then he has an event in Lakeshore. He can go to Lakeshore and then come back the following weekend and set up, and that's okay.
Through the chair, that's correct. And that's why I think it's called a transient vendor license, is that although they're not allowed to be mobile throughout our municipality, they are allowed to leave and come back.
Any other questions, comments, Councilor Hammond?
Yes, thank you through you. I think once we get recoup our losses from whatever we need to check out and everything, that we don't need to be charging the full cost of another license. But I'm just wondering if we shouldn't maybe ask for a fee from any proprietor that's inviting these people to, just so that we have an inventory of where these places are showing up, and so that bylaw knows that they're allowed there and stuff like that. Thank you.
So through the chair, I think I understand what you're saying is that, like, the property owners, for example, should have to pay a fee for allowing a transient vendor to operate on their property. We did consider that, and we did talk to some property owners. A lot of them are members of the BIA, and a lot of them are already paying BIA fees and taxes and things like that, where we're not seeing this license. This license is not as popular as you might think it would be. So we thought that if we did that, it would make it completely prohibitive and you probably wouldn't see it at all. So that's why we didn't recommend it.
Okay, the other thing that I wanted to add to that was that it also allows by law to check with other businesses that provide food and stuff like that, just to maybe get their permission and stuff like that, since they're in immediate areas. We have numerous food courts around Canadian Tire now. It would be nice to see what the reaction is from the food vendors that are permanent out there.
So through the chair, one of the things I wanted to mention is that besides this potential vendor, we did have one other vendor since in the last 3 years operate through a transient vendor license. That vendor so far this year has not renewed their license. So we have 0 transient vendor licenses in place. One of the important things that the revised bylaw will do is it will increase the current fine from $150 to $500 for operating. So right now, as the fine stands, because the previous bylaw is so antiquated, it's actually cheaper to get fined 3 times than it is, or 2.5 times than it is to get your license. So we think it's a bit important to get this bylaw in so that we can update that fine, so that we can penalize people who are operating without a license. And then, as I said, there's currently 0 licenses. So the concern with competing with transient vendors competing with other properties is very low right now. It doesn't mean that next year it might not be high, and maybe we can come, if it is, and we see that all of a sudden the licensing scheme fluctuates and we have 10, 15 licenses and they are competing with other businesses, we can come back and tighten some of those requirements up for the next year. But as of right now, it's so far not a concern, because as I said, there's currently 0 transient vendor licenses for this year.
Okay, I have Councilor Verbeek, then Councilor Garen.
Okay, thank you. Through the mayor to the clerk. So again, we heard when you first presented this that there aren't a lot of applicants to do this service in our community. And right now, only 1. We also do know, we're aware that this service is really quite seasonal. So I don't want to do anything that's going to hang up passing this so we can start moving forward. I do like that we're going to see an increase in the fines to deter people from breaking the rules that are being put in place. However, is there a way for us to add tonight and still pass a clause that if they've established and paid the full price at one address, that they could pay perhaps half price for other addresses? And I'm only going on this because we've heard from the only vendor that's applied this year is telling us that they like to go back and forth from the 2 home hardwares within our municipality that welcome them and are willing to host them.
So through the chair, if council's willing to, there's 2 ways that we can handle it. So first of all, if council's willing to add some wording in saying that they passed the bylaw along with a secondary licensing scheme that's, for example, 50% of the cost of the full license, then I think administration can go ahead and do that, but council would have to trust administration in the wording of how that looks. Otherwise, what we could do is we could postpone this for another meeting, and council could come back with the wording allowing for a secondary location license or subsequent location licenses, depending on what council wants.
Okay. So I'm looking to see what the will of council is. I have Councilor Garen.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, I don't think we have a major concern with how many transients we have in town, but that being said, we have to have rules, regulations, and everyone has to follow them. And we get to make that decision tonight, I think. But just a couple of things. So couple on being able to leave and go to like a festival or something, they usually will charge for that. So he's not taking that transient license and saying, hey, I already paid. I'm going over to this festival and I don't have to pay. So let's keep that in mind. And when that person decides they're going to take their truck to a festival or anything like that, or an event, a special event, they're typically paying a fee on top of what they paid. And then the other thing is they're not restricted right now to seasons at all. They're not even restricted to how many days they can operate. And a transient, the complete definition of a transient is temporary. So we should have something in the bylaw that says, okay, transient can be permitted in town, pay the license, go through all the legwork they have to get their license. But how many times can they operate? And I'd rather them not operate from one location, because if you're operating from one location for a long period of time, you're almost opening yourself up to different regulations, different zonings, maybe even. You're more of a permanent than you are a temporary or a transient. So I'd rather see the transient move around, whether or not the transient pays more for each location. I think they should. I definitely like to hear that the property owner is involved with them applications too, and that they're just not encroaching on property or what have you. But do we have the ability to write in what we feel transient or temporary, like how many times they are permitted, like how many dates they're permitted? I don't care about seasons. I mean, in a calendar year of 360 days is temporary in our minds 60, 90, 120 days. When did we start saying this is a full-time business? And it should be more brick and mortar and taxes.
So through the chair, the license is only, it only lasts for 1 year, so expires after a year. So they'd have to come back for the license every year, year after year. So that's kind of what makes it a temporary thing so far. And council could change the rules every year because the license expires. So if council wants to change something next year, the license will expire. So they'd have no right to continue to operate at that premises, unlike a regular brick and mortar place. The other thing, again, as I said, is this license is already so restrictive that we have almost nobody using it. To add more restrictions would make it even less, would give even less appetite to people to come and use this license. It's up to council though, if they want to add more restrictions to the license.
Yeah, through the mayor, further that, again, like, so what you're basically saying is if I apply to be a transient in Essex and you give me my license, it's restricted to one location right now without having to reapply and pay again, but I could do it for the whole year, every day if I wanted. And that to me is not transient. That's a full-time. So I think there has to be something in there the council decides on what the time limit's going to be on that license. Not so much that it's good from this date to this date, but how many dates can they actually operate?
So through the chair, the last thing I just wanted to say about this license is, so this license looks a lot like transient vendor licenses at all the other municipalities. And really, I think we're getting hung up on the word transient. What this license is, it allows mobile vendors to operate for a year. That's what it does. And that's what it does in every municipality. I think council has a decision. Do you want mobile vendors to operate for a year? That's decision 1 or 2. And then another decision is, does council want to have something where vendors can come into the municipality and be mobile and move around? I think it's 2 different things actually. So you can decide whether or not you want people to set up for a year and operate from a fixed location through a mobile vending unit, or do you want people to come in and be mobile? And it could be both. You could have both things operating in the municipality. It's up to you.
Okay, I'm going to go to CAO Drusevich, then Councilor McGuire-Blaze for a motion.
Through the chair, I think some of Councillor Guerin's concerns are actually embedded within the definition of a transient vendor. So within that, it basically states that, and who conducts this business for a limited period does not operate from a fixed permanent retail establishment. So if administration found that they were continually submitting an application for the same location, we would have justification through this definition to deny their application at a certain point.
Okay, Councilor McGuire-Blaze.
Thanks through the chair. So I think listening to council, I think my motion wants to be something along the lines of not passing this tonight, but having our administration come back to us with something that allows for the vendors to be mobile within the municipality throughout the 12 months. So I think that needs to come back and we need to see what that looks like. And whether there's a fee for moving or not. I don't know what the requirements would be, but I think we need to see what administration has to say. And possibly we could have like a list, like posted on our website of where the vendor's going to be. So they would have to you're going to come up with something, but an idea might be they're going to be in Harrow for these 3 weeks. They're going to be in Essex for these 3 weeks. They're going to be in Colchester for these 3 weeks, or however it would be. Because the transient vendor is still going to need to get permits or permission from different commercial establishments. It's not like they can just go and set up shop at Foodland and not ask for permission. So you're going to have to know that anyways, or the business is going to have to know that. Someone is going to have to set that up. So I think that it wouldn't be unreasonable to get a schedule and get that ahead of time. But I leave that up to you to put together. But I think that motion administration should come back to us with something that lets us know that they are able to move within the municipality for the duration of the vendor license.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from Councilor McGuire-Blaze is that we'll defer this until administration can bring us something back that talks to having a fixed license that can move around. Personally, myself, I'm not so keen on town resources promoting the transient vendor license. I think that that's up to the business itself to promote. I don't know if our core businesses would be really happy if we started pushing out where our transient vendor licenses are. That's just my opinion. But final comments to this, and motion to defer, then it dies. So final comments, Councillor Hammond, I know you had your hand up, then I'm going to go back to Councillor McGuire-Blaze. Last comment.
Yes, thank you, through you. I was just, so I understand that there is no town properties that are suitable for a transient. Is there any possibility that there might be some town properties that would be suitable for a transient? And could you make I'd say an inventory that would offer that possibility? That's if this does go through. I'm just wondering if the town has any type of properties that would be suitable for transit vendor without any competition.
So through the chair, the only town properties that we allow transient vendors to operate from at the moment is those that are holding an event pursuant to CERT. So if they receive CERT approval, then those vendors can operate from town properties.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to get a motion to defer, moved by Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Allard. Yeah, and Director Malin-Tricolo wants a little bit of clarity.
So just through the chair, I can reach out to council after the fact too, but just a little bit of clarity. Are we allowing, in your motion, are we deferring for a bylaw to come back that allows for both permanent and mobile? Or are we restricting some of the permanency as Councillor Guerin is suggesting?
Thanks through the chair. I think we need to come back permanent and mobile.
Okay, so motion to defer, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, clear as mud, eh?
I know I'm past my time, but would there be a second I could ask for clarification on when we would use a license?
No,
No? Okay.
no, sorry. You'll have to talk with our administration after, sorry. Okay. Moving on to Recreation and Culture. June is Recreation and Culture Month 2026. We have Manager Newton here with us to talk a little bit about how exciting June is, June 1st.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. The Town of Essex Community Services Department is excited to once again participate in June as Recreation and Park Month, which allows us to showcase some of our amazing programs, parks, and facilities. We will be offering free programs and activities to encourage our residents to explore and connect through participation, as well as promote the many available opportunities across the municipality. We acknowledge that access to parks and recreation helps to foster personal health, strong communities, and social inclusion. We appreciate council's support of this annual initiative and our recreation department.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions to Manager Newton here this evening? Seeing none, I'll look for a mover and a seconder that the Recreation and Culture Report be received and that council proclaim June as Recreation and Parks Month for the Town of Essex by adopting the following resolution. I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Allard, Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Whereas in the town of Essex, we are fortunate to have a variety of recreation and park systems providing countless recreational opportunities for residents and visitors from around the world. And whereas recreation enhances quality of life, balanced living, and lifelong learning, helps people live happier and longer, develops skills and positive self-image in children and youth, develops creativity and builds healthy bodies and positive lifestyles. And whereas recreational participation builds family unity and social capital, strengthens volunteer and community development, enhances social interaction, creates community pride and vitality, and promotes sensitivity and understanding to cultural diversity. And whereas parks, open space, and trails provide active and passive outdoor recreation opportunities, help maintain clear air and water, and promote stewardship of the natural environment. And whereas recreation, therapeutic recreation, and leisure education are essential to the rehabilitation of individuals who have become ill or disabled or disadvantaged or have demonstrated antisocial behavior. And whereas the benefits provided by recreation programs, services, and parks and open space reduce healthcare and social service costs, serve to boost the economy, economic renewal, and sustainability, enhance property values, attract new business, increase tourism, and curb employee absenteeism. And whereas all levels of government, the voluntary sector, and private enterprise throughout the province participate in the planning, development, and operation of recreation and parks program, services, and facilities.
Thank you, Director Malin-Tricolo. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Therefore, I, Mayor Sherry Bondi, in recognition of the benefits and values of recreation and parks, do hereby designate the month of June as Recreation and Parks in the Town of Essex. Thank you for coming, Sarah. Thank you. Moving on to drainage, municipal drainage activity report. We will go to our drainage superintendent, Miss Lindsay Dean, to, this is, I think, the second annual report we've received. All right, welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. So the report I've provided you outlines the construction and maintenance costs and activities from the years 2024 to 2026. I'd like to let council know that billing is up to date for all of our completed projects for both maintenance and construction. For construction this year, we are expecting several projects to be completed and billed. For maintenance, we have recently applied for grants for the 2025 calendar year, and we will be sending out bills shortly. The department has a lot of projects on the go at various stages in the process, but we are up to date with our billing processes and will continue to get more projects completed throughout the year, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments from members of council this evening? Councilor McGuire Blaze?
Thanks through the chair. I wasn't sure if it was this one or the last one. That's why I hesitated. Under total projects incurred, I'm just looking at 2024. So total project costs incurred, total cost billed, it's almost double. Is there a reason for that one? And that's on page 3. Why it would be doubled? Like, why is total cost billed almost double what the total project costs incurred? Or can you explain that? Maybe I'm thinking it's something different in my head.
So through the mayor, basically what we're representing is the costs incurred within those calendar years and then the costs billed within those years. So construction projects most times span multiple years. So a project could start 3 years prior to, but not get billed till it's done. So it doesn't represent an in and out because the projects are not completed within one calendar year. So the numbers basically represent what we spent in that year and then what we actually collected and recovered costs for within that year. So with time, there's always going to be a lag between those numbers. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from members of council this evening? One of the things that I've talked to the CEO about in hopes of the new term is to see, just like we have live streamed our committee of adjustment meetings, I would love, my bucket wish list would be to have drainage meetings live streamed so that people that can't attend them can watch them. I think it would be really helpful to teach members of the public about the Drainage Act too. And then for members of council that can't go there, we could also watch it and get an understanding. So it's on my wish list for the new term. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the drainage report be received for information. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to municipal concurrence request for proposed telecommunications facility at 2060 Ferris Road in Harrow. We will go to Director Chadwick. Okay, I'm just reading my notes.
Through the chair. Good evening. We have a report for you on a proposed telecommunications tower at 2060 Ferris Road. We have with us today Jeremy Tran of NPG Planning Solutions, who has been supporting the Town of Essex Planning Division with the review of this proposal, and his team has also prepared the presentation that is on your agenda tonight, as well as the report. So I will hand it over to Mr. Tran to go through the presentation, the proposal, and as well as provide an analysis to council of how the proposal conforms and in areas of which it doesn't conform with the telecommunications policy that the town has approved back in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Good evening to Mayor and members of council. My name is Jeremy Tran from NPG Planning Solutions. We are retained by the town to review the application for the telecommunication facilities at 2060 Ferris Road. I will, as part of my presentation tonight, I will walk through the site contact, the application timeline, the public feedback that have been received, as well as an evaluation of how the proposal complies with the policy 089 that the town has for telecommunication facility. If you could scroll down to the next slide, In terms of the site context, the subject properties is located at 2060 Ferris Road, which is outlined in red in the figure on the screen. The lands are currently being used for industrial uses, designated industrial in the town official plan, and zoned manufacturing district 1.1 in the town's zoning bylaw. In terms of surrounding uses, to the north of the subject lands is the property known at 2080 Ferris Road. That is an industrial property. To the east of the subject lands are agricultural uses, and the other properties shown on the figure, including 2040, 2050, and 2070 Ferris Road, are residential. On the next slide, I will speak to the application timeline so far. So the applicant has met up with the town for pre-consultation meetings in May and September of 2025. Following that, they conducted a public consultation for the proposal between October and November 28 of 2025. And in January, they submitted the application to the town and went through 3 rounds of submission and revisions. And that brings us to today, where we present the application in front of council for a decision. On the next slide, the proposed telecommunication facility that the applicant is proposing contains a 60-meter high self-supporting tower, 64.5 meter in height, including the lightning rod, and an equipment shelter accompanying the supporting tower, the self-supporting tower. On the next slide is a rendering that the applicant has provided. As you can see on the figure on the right, the proposed tower can be seen from Ferris Street. On the next slide, the figures on the left demonstrate the existing coverage in Harrow, and the figure on the right illustrate the proposed coverage in Harrow after the installation of the proposed tower. Areas that are shown in dark green and light greens indicate good and excellent coverage, and areas shown in the other colors indicate poor, bad, or no coverage. The applicant concluded that the proposed tower will improve TELUS coverage capability in East Harrow to 75% of the affected population. On the next slide is the site plan that the applicant has provided. The proposed telecommunication tower is located in the northern portion of the site. And in terms of landscaping, the proponents agreed to maintain the existing row of trees, which are outlined in yellow on the site plan. They also agreed to plant up to 8 coniferous trees adjacent to the existing rows of trees, and this is shown and outlined in green on the site plan. On the next slide, the public consultation that the applicant has gone through has concluded the following comments and concern raised by the public related to proximity, health concern, safety concern, and aesthetic concern in relation to the location of the tower in proximity to nearby residential properties. There are questions related to future co-location capability of the proposed facility, question related to impacts of the facility on property value, whether public lands were considered during site selection process, question related to existing coverage gaps, such area that the applicant has undertaken, and the content of the pre-consultation meeting with the town. And lastly, a nearby resident offered his property as an alternative parcel of land that the applicant could consider for locating the tower. On the next slide is a summary of the proposal, whether it complies and where it does not comply with policy 089. In general, the proposal is expected to improve the coverage in Harrow and has future co-location capability. The applicant confirmed that co-location is not feasible, but detailed documentary evidence of that is not available to share due to confidentiality. The selected site is discouraged by policy 089, and it does not meet the minimum setback requirement from residentially zoned properties. The proposed facility is visible from Ferris Road, as can be seen from the rendering. The proposed facility is not monopoles as preferred by policy 089 and does not implement any stealthing techniques due to the proposed height. The proposal does complies with policy 089 in terms of finishes, lighting, and display signages, and the proponents has agreed to maintain existing trees and plant additional trees to improve screening. However, requests for additional trees planting to screen the proposed tower from the street and other residential properties were declined by the applicant. And on the last slide, so we have made two recommendations. We have presented two options in front of council tonight. If council support the proposal, that is, the recommendation would be that council provide municipal concurrence to the ISED subject to the condition outlined in the report. Alternatively, if council does not support the proposal, then council would provide municipal non-concurrence to the ISED. This is the end of my presentations. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions right now, Councillor Verbeek?
Through you, Madam Mayor. My first question is, there was someone offered a different property to the proponents. I'm wondering, would it have less negative effects? I mean, there's policy issues, there's several residents. Would the property that was offered be more ideal? And my second question would be, how many properties have been investigated? Like, is this the best of several? Because it seems to be falling short.
Thank you, Councillor. Through the mayor to Councillor Verbeek. For the first questions, my understanding is there is an owner of an agricultural parcel. They have offered their property to the applicant to consider. However, the applicant has indicated that they have not looked into this as an option since they are pursuing the current location, 2060 Ferris Road, in this application. So they have not entertained that request. In terms of the second questions, how many properties that the applicant has investigated? According to their submission, the applicant has indicated that they have investigated agricultural, industrial, and municipal properties within the search area. And the current location, according to the applicant, is the best option that would provide them with the improvement in coverage that is required. And they're not able to find any other properties that would provide a bigger setback from residential properties.
Okay, thank you. It's my understanding that the applicant is also on Zoom. So Mr. Dave Zacher, if you did want to answer that question, we can bring you on screen. There you are. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Through the mayor, to answer the question about assessing the property that was provided and promoted during consultation. So what happened there was one of the area stakeholders that received notification of this proposed facility reached out to us who are representing Terrion, the tower owner, and just advised that if this location doesn't work, that he owns agriculture property that's located 600 and more meters to the east. And if we wanted to assess his property at that time, he would be willing to discuss. And I can advise that the location of that property being 600 plus meters to the east was actually outside of the objective search area for this facility to provide necessary coverage to the west for the town of Harrow as well. So the further east we moved, and this is just a very preliminary assessment, the further east we moved, we took that necessary coverage with us. So we backburnered that property until such time as we make decisions on this property.
Okay, thank you. I have Counselor Hammond, and then I'd like to go to Mr. Zach Klein.
Yes, thinking through you, Chair, couple of things came to mind while I was going over this. There's obviously the cell tower is too close to the homes by any federal stipulations. There was a lack of open consultation, like other communities. I'll use Kingsville as an example. Harrow residents were only given a 30-day notice of intent. No preliminary public engagement. There has been a request for a relocation. Because the proposal doesn't meet provisions 6.1.4.1.4 and requires an antenna to be set back 3 times the height from any nearby homes. Apparently they looked into co-location with the Explore facility. Then they determined that it wasn't appropriate, but the main reason was apparently the property owner refused access. I'm really curious as to what reasons was given that a property owner would refuse access to another company, obviously giving them more money for a facility. 6.1.1.2.2, owner operator must provide a detailed explanation as to why sharing is not possible. That hasn't been really provided. Co-location not possible. How do we go there? I'm curious as to who owns the property of the tower is being erected, and are they being subjected and obligated to allow co-location if this was to go through? Can anybody answer that?
Is the applicant able to answer that question, or yourself, Jeremy?
Yeah, through the mayor, to the Councillor Hammond. I could answer that question. So if council recommend municipal concurrence to this application, we would subject that municipal concurrence to a series of conditions that we have outlined in the report, including the applicants needing to confirm that they will entertain co-location in the future. That means in the future, after this tower is erected, any future carrier who want to co-locate, they have to entertain that option, and they could only refuse if it's technically infeasible to do so.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Through you. So you're saying that the property owner on this site would not be able to turn down co-location if it was presented to them?
Through the mayor to the councillor, they will not. The condition would say that they have to entertain co-location unless it is technically not possible to do so. And I understand that from their design that they have submitted to the town, there are, I think, probably like 12 locations in the tower that could accommodate co-location, and they're using 4 of those in the application. So there are rooms there in the design to accommodate future co-location requests. But of course, it would subject to technical feasibility.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to our delegate, Mr. Zach Klein. Zach, could you just introduce yourself and state your address, please, sir?
My name is Zach Klein, and I live at 2070 Ferris Road in Harrow. Can you please bring up the first slide?
Zach, while we're getting that on, could you speak a little bit about some of your concerns?
Sure. Good evening, your worship, member of council, and guests. My name is Zach Klein, and I live 37 meters from the proposed 65-meter telecommunications tower in Harrow. Tonight, I'm not here to argue against wireless service. I'm here because I do not believe this process has shown that this specific location, right beside an occupied residence, is the only reasonable or least impactful option available, and that matters. Tonight, I'm going to refer specifically to the Town of Essex own radio and telecommunications faculty protocol policy 089. In section 6, titled Siting on a Property, it says that towers should be sited and designed to respective local sensitivities and preferences. Under section 6.1.3.1.1, discouraged locations, it specifically mentions that new towers should not be located near existing residential development. Next slide, please. This is a wide aerial view showing the adjacent residences. There are 3 properties in the proposed tower zone: 2070 Ferris, my home, the green dot, and 2 other homes, one at 2050 Ferris and the other at 2040. In section 6.1.4.1.4, it states that a new tower should be placed a minimum of 3 times the height of the tower from a property containing a dwelling. That's 193.5 meters. All 3 of the residential properties are inside that setback zone. Under proposal submission requirements, section 8.1.4, Terrion is to provide a map showing horizontal distance between property boundaries of the tower site and the nearest property in residential use. Next slide, please. Terrion hasn't provided such a map, but here's the street view they did provide. I have added those required horizontal dimensions. My kitchen window is 37 meters from the base of this proposed tower site. My fence line is just 15 meters from it. It's roughly the size of this room. Terrion has indicated that the proposed facility location has been determined to be appropriate with consideration to existing and planned land use. With respect, given policy 089's protocol, I don't agree that this location is appropriate at all. Reading from section 6.1.4.11, discouraged locations, Terrion is to locate towers away from street line to minimize visual impact on the tower from streetscape. A 65-meter tower is certainly visible from the street, and you can clearly see it from Terrion's own photo. Terrion has indicated that aesthetic concerns are mitigated by an existing row of trees, but those trees are half the height of the proposed tower. That's not mitigation at all. Under proposal submission requirements, section 8.1.1.4, Terrion was to provide detailed evidence as to why co-location upon an existing tower was not a viable alternative. Terrion replied that the co-location was not feasible, even though the policy dictates that Terrion provide detailed documentary evidence as to why co-location is not a feasible option. Terrion indicated only that evidence was unavailable. Terrion has provided written correspondence that the town's policy regarding the 193-meter setback is not an absolute prohibition, but a guideline to encourage avoidance where alternatives exist. But alternatives do exist. Terrion has asserted that no reasonable alternative location was found within the defined RF service area that would provide increased separation from residential properties. But 6 months ago, a local farmer with land easily within the defined RF zone contacted Terrion and offered a parcel of agricultural land he owned to be considered as an alternative site. Terrion told this farmer that alternative sites were not being pursued. Why not? Section 5.2.2 tells us that during the pre-consultation process with the town, Terrion is to provide potential alternative locations. The farm offered is well outside the 193-meter setback, and the owner has provided it as an option. Why was it not considered? Last slide, please. I want to close with something directly from Essex strategic priorities. Take care of our natural environment and strengthen the sense of belonging to everyone who makes Essex home. Essex is my home. Please ensure that the people who live here continue to feel heard, valued, and that they belong. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Just hang tight in case council members have questions for you. At this time, I'd like to open the floor to Mr. Dave Zacher. If there's anything else you would like to say, I do have you listed on the agenda.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to council and administration, thank you for hearing our application tonight. Again, my name is David Zacher. I'm attending on behalf of Tarion to be available to respond and answer questions and comments for the application for the concurrence request for this facility. TELUS is working in partnership with Tarion. Tarion is a next generation tower company specializing in high performance wireless towers and rooftop installations designed for scalable multi-tenant use. As an affiliate of TELUS, Tarion develops, owns, and manages telco towers and rooftop antenna facilities intended to accommodate multiple wireless carriers where feasible in accordance with federal policy. At present, there are no other telecommunication facilities or towers in this specific area that are available or suitable for co-location. Given the absence of viable co-location opportunities, the development of a new telecommunication tower is required to meet TELUS's objectives, their coverage objectives, and to address service deficiencies in and around Harrow, while remaining consistent with applicable municipal and federal policy requirements. The proposed facility is located on an existing industrial property, as we've heard, with the greater surrounding land uses, primarily agriculture and rural in nature, along with residential dwellings and properties adjacent to the west and to the south. The site was selected to balance technical coverage objectives with compatibility with surrounding land uses. As we've heard, the proposals for 60-meter self-support tower, 64.5 meters to the top of the lightning rod, within a leased premise on the private property. Site access for construction and maintenance access would be from Ferris Road. Construction is expected to occur over a 4 to 6 week period. Once operational, a facility like this would remain unoccupied. Traffic generation would be minimal, with a few visits potentially monthly or semi-monthly. Aeronautical approvals, a question that's come up. All necessary transport and NAV Canada approvals have been obtained by Tarion, and to confirm, there will not be any aeronautical lighting on this tower facility if built. Tarion confirms that co-locate opportunities were evaluated in accordance with section 8112 of the town's protocol, along with ISED CPC. The feasibility of co-location depends on several factors, including structural capacity, required antenna height, spatial separation, ownership agreements, and proximity to target areas. Tarion completed a review of existing tower infrastructure within the prescribed 500-meter radius as per policy, and then extended this review beyond the minimum requirement, consistent with ISED CPC. This review confirmed that no existing towers are located within 500 meters. However, as part of the review, co-location at the Explorer facility that is located 1.7 kilometers to the west was reviewed and determined to be infeasible for multiple reasons. In addition to coverage limitations, the property owner did decline to permit additional carriers access to the structure. So in the absence of property owner consent, co-location is not feasible in practice. Although federal and municipal policies encourage co-location where practical, it is contingent upon both technical and landowner consent. A third-party landowner's refusal to permit additional carriers renders co-location unavailable in practice and does not obligate a proponent to secure access where it cannot be obtained. We did provide all this information to the town, and we firmly believe, that this satisfies policy 611 and 8114 of the town's protocol. You've heard a lot of this. I'm the third one to repeat some of this, so I'm just going to skip a little bit here. While the town siting guideline notes that placing a telecommunication facility near an existing residential development is discouraged, the policy is not an absolute prohibition. It is an evaluative guideline intended to encourage avoidance where reasonable alternatives exist. Tarion acknowledges that residential properties are located south and west of the subject lands which are zoned M11 manufacturing district and industrial designation. The tower is proposed within an established industrial parcel rather than within a residentially designated property. There is an existing row of mature trees along the west property line. Industrial buildings to the north and the east, they further reduce visibility from certain vantage points. There will not be any removal of existing trees to accommodate this facility. While proximity to residential does exist, the selected location represents a practical industrial parcel solution within the defined search area and achieves an appropriate balance between service delivery and compatibility considered under the protocol. At both stages of pre-consultation, no concerns were raised by town staff regarding residential proximity or the application of the 3 times height setback guideline. Staff did express support for improved telecommunication coverage within the Harrow and Essex area, and we did move forward. While additional clarification was requested during the formal consultation process, the proposed location itself was not identified during pre-consultation as unsuitable or incompatible from a residential reference. Based on this assessment, Tarion has determined that the proposed location represents an appropriate and compliant site. Accordingly, consultation has proceeded and been completed at this location in full accordance with the Town of Essex protocol and ISED guidelines. Thank you very much, and I'm available to take your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Zacher. Questions, comments from council? Council, you've had the reports, you've seen the delegations. There is 2 choices for us, one to provide municipal non-concurrence and one to provide municipal concurrence. Looking to see the will of council. Councilor Verbeek?
I will move that we receive the report and that we provide municipal non-concurrence as number 1 states.
Okay, moved by Councilor Verbeek that council provide municipal non-concurrence to the Innovative Science Economic Development Canada for the proposed telecommunications tower as shown in the report, supported by Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor with a comment.
Yeah, I'm glad you made the motion. If you didn't, I was going to. I remember this happening on Concession Road 10 years ago, and those residents are stuck with the tower, unfortunately. So, and it was a lot further away than this one. So I'm glad you made the motion. I fully support that motion.
Speaking to the motion, Councilor Meady.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you for making that motion. I agree with that sentiment totally. I think a lot of us learned our lessons with the windmills. Once we allow them to get built, that forever will be next to somebody's house in an area that's not, that doesn't meet the setback. I couldn't do that to future generations or to yourself.
Any other members of council to the motion? Councilor McGuire, please.
Thanks through the chair. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask the question, but how come, why was our staff not concerned about the 3 times height issue? Why would we go through with recommendation even though it's literally right in a resident's backyard?
Thank you through the chair. No, we did raise issue with the setback, and that was raised during the consultation process. Pre-consultation, Tarion advised us of the proposed location, and we advised them of our policy. We advised them that industrial is preferred over agricultural. However, we did not get a full submission at that time. We do allow for the pre-consultation process to unfold for public consultation, and then we review the complete package when it is submitted. So in the package that was presented to you in your agenda, you will see comments coming from the planning division which raise concerns with the setback.
Anything else from members of council? I'm wondering, I definitely want to support the motion. I'm glad that that is the option that we're going. I'm wondering what else we can do rather than, like, in addition to, not rather than, in addition to providing the municipal non-concurrence, is there anything we can do to let, the minister or whoever is the approval authority at the federal level know that there are a number of concerns with this? Like, it's easy to send a resolution saying we don't concur, but I'd like to also get our message across as to why we don't concur, and this is why. And also to also let our MPP, Chris Lewis, know, in case he hears about this, why we didn't concur. I don't know if anybody, if Mr. Zacher, if there's, you have a suggestion on who we can send the letter to, or members of our administration? Director Chadwick.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. A good suggestion. So we would send a letter, most definitely to ISED. We could certainly copy the local MPP. As a part of the letter of concurrence, we would attach to that letter this staff report and all attachments that do come with the staff report.
Okay, thank you. I would like that embedded in the motion, if that's okay, that we include that. I'd also like to be CC'd on that. I want to be CC'd on that correspondence when that goes out. Okay, all in favor of the non-conformance? That's carried unanimously. Thank you for doing your homework, and thank you for coming. Do you want a separate motion that we receive the delegates? Okay, motion to receive the delegates, Zach Klein and David Zacher, moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, moving on to extension of part lot control exemption for phase 1 of Greenleaf Trails residential subdivision. Looking for a mover and a seconder, that the report be received and that bylaw 2537 be read a first, second time, provisionally adopted June 1st. We do have Brent Klunder on Zoom if we have any questions from BK Cornerstone. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by, I'll get the motion on the table, and then Councillor Verbeek. Director Chadwick, can you just quickly summarize here what we're doing?
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just as a friendly reminder to council, part lot control exemption, also known as PLCE, is a planning instrument used to subdivide townhome or semi-detached blocks into individual lots. So what this application does, it facilitates the individual sale of those dwelling units once construction is complete. It thereby eliminates the need for consent to sever, for example. So in this regard, Greenleaf subdivision, there are a few lots or blocks rather that have not been sold. And so PLCE is being requested, an extension rather is being requested for a period of 3 years. Just as an FYI to council, there's no limit to the number of times that PLCE can be renewed, but each request expires after 3 years and each request requires council approval.
Okay, thank you, Director Chadwick, for explaining that. Any questions from members of council? Councillor Hammond?
So if we don't approve this extension, then what happens?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So the applicant would have a few options. One option would be to apply for consent to sever after the after the dwelling is built. The consent to sever, again, like it's very difficult for an applicant to build the dwellings and have the lot line exactly where the dividing wall is. And so PLCE is just an instrument to make it easier for developers to sell individual units rather than have to go to consent to sever.
Thank you.
All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Moving on to Parks and Facilities, Greenleaf Park Design. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Parks and Facilities be received and that council approve the design plan to prepare cost estimates for the presentment of the 2027 budget deliberations. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions from members of council? Or do you want Director Morrissey to make it?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. So just as a quick update, so administration did present this plan to council on February 17th, where we were initiating a public feedback. During that time, we did receive 2 comments. The first comment was that I'm not in favor of the park as proposed. We have a kids' water park in an appropriate area already. Perhaps this is a good place for a dog park or perhaps a walking track. So we did incorporate a walking track as part of this, not necessarily a track, but pathways as part of the design plan. And so that was a check in the box. And in terms of the dog park, that is something that we're working on incorporating at the Harrow Fairgrounds master plan, which we hope to have back to council shortly. The second comment that we had was please consider tennis courts at Greenleaf Park if they are not able to be incorporated at the Harrow Fairgrounds Park. So that was something that was passed in November at the budget deliberations for the Harrow Soccer Complex for this year. So I did communicate that with the resident and she was understanding of that. So we are looking to solidify this design plan so we can start working on cost estimates for when we do receive the parkland as part of this development. And then we can have something in future budgets.
Thank you, Director Morris. This is just a question to kind of all directors. When we have members of the public that reach out and provide feedback, do we suggest to them, like highly recommend to them to sign up to our website to get all of our newsletters and agendas? Because sometimes I feel like if they follow the story along, then they know the things that we've done. Is that like a practice that we could do? You don't have to answer, but Councillor Verbeek.
Thanks through you, Madam Mayor. I like this as much now or more now than I did before. My question to you, Director, is the lovely walking path. In the renderings, it looks hard surface. Can you confirm? Like it looks concrete.
Through the mayor. So we do try our best to hard surface any of the urban area park surfaces. This one is a little unique because it does go through a naturalized area. So the naturalized area, we probably wouldn't, depending on cost estimates. It's more likely that the outside areas would be. That's why the design plans show it's compacted gravel because it would go through the tree in more of a naturalized area. But the front areas would be concrete.
Any other questions from members of council? Just to get it on the public record, the developers did reach out. I had a couple meetings with them, and one of the questions they had, and I just want it to be answered here, is could they potentially create a trail around the stormwater retention pond? So that's not a going forward with this doesn't mean we can't do that. I'm wondering if Director Gerard or Director Morrisut, arm wrestle.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Bundy. So we are working with the developer now and we are in those discussions. There are various concerns that we have with it, but we're not against it. It's just something that I think we need to work out the minutiae and the details of and work out those details before we can commit.
Okay, thank you. And just for the public record, this park will be paid for by development fees? Okay, that's good. So just members of the public know when we get a new subdivision, we try to incorporate a park if there's room. We have a mover and a seconder already. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Moving on to our low density residential parking review, looking for a mover and a seconder that the report be received and that council direct administration to initiate the zoning bylaw amendment process to increase the requirement to 2 parking spaces for the main dwelling unit for low density residential units to improve garage space dimensions and to continue allowing garage spaces to be used towards the meeting parking requirements. We'll have Director Chadwick walk us through this, please.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you to council. I will give Ms. Phoenix an opportunity to pull up the presentation. And while we're doing that, I'll introduce you to a couple of team members. So as a part of this review, administration retained NPG Planning Solutions to assist in the review, provide technical expertise and insight into best practices. So here with us today is Jesse Auspitz, Principal Planner at NPG, as well as, of course, Manager of Planning Services at the town, Rita Jabor. Next slide, please. So the project team reviewed the policy and legislative context. Oh, actually the purpose. Let's talk about the purpose. So the purpose, so to provide council with information and an analysis on the town's current on-site parking regulations in the zoning bylaw for low-density residential uses. This was in response to council's direction in the fall in October of 2025. And we're also here to seek direction on whether or not to initiate the zoning bylaw amendment process for low-density residential parking regulations. And now we can go to the next slide, please. So the project team reviewed the policy and legislative context to parking requirements for low-density residential, the current zoning standards, parking demand data, municipal comparators, and of course, physical site constraints in order to assess whether parking requirements remain appropriate as the town permits more housing intensification, of course, also including ADUs. Next slide, please. So really, the review is shaped by two competing priorities or competing realities, rather. On one hand, provincial and local policy directions encourage residential intensification, housing choice, affordability, efficient land use, and climate responsive planning. While on the other hand, Essex remains automobile dependent with limited transit options and strong demand for on-site parking. There's also physical site constraints in many of our infill neighborhoods, as well as, of course, the existing lots that are on record. So this review therefore focuses on finding a balanced approach that supports new housing while recognizing local travel behavior and neighborhood conditions. Next slide, please. So we, as directed by council, looked at parking requirements for low density residential use. Oh, sorry, next slide, one more, yep. Residential uses as listed on the slide. If you recall, in 2023, council already amended and improved parking for multi-unit residential for apartments and condominiums. And again, once more in 2025 for combined use buildings. So our review considered parking regulations against the following factors: lot sizes, driveway widths, landscaped open space, and streetscape quality. Next slide, please. So this slide depicts current parking requirements in the zoning bylaw. Currently, each dwelling unit in a single semi-townhome or ADU requires one parking space per dwelling unit. A driveway parking space must be no smaller than 18 feet by 9 feet. A garage parking space must, did I say garage? I meant to say driveway. Did I say driveway? Okay, driveway is 9 by 18 and a garage parking space is 11.5 by 18. And there are certain percentages as identified on the slide where minimum landscaped areas are required for front yards depending on the width of each lot. Next slide, please. So next up, we analyze parking demand and comparators. The 2021 census sample of almost 8,000 Town of Essex residents aged 15 years and over shows that 96.2% of residents commute to their places of work, school, and shopping via car, truck, or van. We also reviewed the Institute of Transportation Engineers, ITE, Parking Generation Manual, which found that the average parking rate in a single detached, semi-detached, and townhome with 2 or more bedrooms is between 1.27 to 1.41 parking spaces per unit. There is a typo on the slide here, but the report, rather the study does indicate the average is 1.27 to 1.41 spaces per unit. Parking requirements in municipalities in all of the County of Essex, as well as other municipalities similar in rural characteristics and population outside of Essex were compared to. Most comparable municipalities require 1.25 spaces per dwelling unit, which is more than the Town of Essex. So we concluded essentially that the Town of Essex parking requirements are lower than many of our peers and the parking demand. Next slide, please. So although parking demand in Essex is likely higher than the town's current standard of 1 parking space per dwelling unit. We wanted to provide council with some insight, and this report allowed us to do that, into the physical site conditions and the impacts to increasing parking space requirements. Raising parking requirements too aggressively can reduce housing affordability. It can constrain ADUs and residential intensification, and it can create barriers on existing lots that have physical site conditions. Parking requirements can consume, or rather increasing parking requirements too aggressively can consume land and building space that could otherwise be used for housing. For example, developers may be left to either reduce the number of units to fit the required parking or reduce the building space itself. This reduces overall housing supply, which can push prices upward. Next slide, please. So for garage parking considerations, we concluded that garages are often used for storage instead of vehicles. I'm sure all of us at this table can attest to that, or some of us, I should say, can attest to that. So we also did realize that in some cases, maintaining garage space or garage parking does help to reduce the visual impact of surface parking. In other words, for those dwellings and those residents that do use garage spaces for vehicles, it does help to reduce the visual impact or that streetscaping of a neighborhood when cars are parked inside a garage. And then lastly, we did conclude that larger garage dimensions may improve functionality. So to give you perspective, in our own home, a 2-car garage may be used for some storage and a small vehicle, but sure won't fit that big F-150. So we found that increasing those garage dimensions may actually assist. What we did want to conclude and share with council is that it is not a recommendation to exclude garage parking or rely solely on larger parking areas, in that it would reduce permeability, landscaped areas, and of course, can lead to stormwater impacts and increased urban heat island effects. Next slide, please. So the project team reviewed 4 options, alternative options to improving low-density parking regulations. We'll go through those options very quickly here. So the first option, which is administration and the project team's recommendation, is to require 2 parking spaces for the main dwelling unit, to allow garage parking spaces, and to improve garage space dimensions. The opportunities and issues to this is that we believe it better reflects local parking demand. It recognizes Essex's reliance on vehicles. It maintains flexibility by allowing garage parking, and it avoids overly constraining housing supply and better supports council and the broader planning and housing objectives from the province downwards. Option 2 was analyzed to require 2 parking spaces for the main dwelling unit and to also increase minimum lot widths for some housing forms. We'll get into some visuals to help council understand what that looks like. But what this conclusion was that it conflicts with the 2024 council direction, where council actually amended the zoning bylaw, bless you, to reduce lot widths for various housing forms. So it goes against that direction from only less than 2 years ago. Next slide, please. Option 3 is to essentially do a do nothing approach, keep the current requirements as is, and rely more on on-street parking. We did find, and we did consult with our partners in infrastructure services, that there are no parking limitations in most neighborhoods, that there would be available on-street parking. Of course, whether it's in front of a dwelling or a block or 2 away, that option was reviewed. Option 4 is to require 2 parking spaces for the main dwelling unit, but not allow garage parking. Our issues and opportunities with this option was that it creates site design and landscaping impacts. We'll get into that in the visuals. And it may increase minor variance applications because of those site limitations. And lastly, it may reduce ability to accommodate ADUs conflicting with provincial and local policy frameworks. Next slide, please. So this table here compares current on-site parking requirements with proposed on-site parking requirements. To give you, I won't go through every single option here, but or rather scenario, but to give you a scenario of a typical 3-unit, I shouldn't say typical, but the new 3-unit dwellings that we see around town. A 3-unit dwelling currently requires 3 parking spaces. The proposed on-site requirement would have a requirement of 4 on-site parking spaces. Next slide, please. So the next slides provide a bit of a visualization to various parking scenarios and potential impacts. So this slide before us here is a concept for a 12-meter wide frontage lot, a single unit dwelling with 2 ADUs, an R1.1 zoning. The minimum lot area is 360 meters. This here shows us that the landscaped area could be met. The landscaped, the required parking is, the current required parking is in black, we'll call it font or outline, and the additional parking or the proposed change would be required in red. So the limitations here that we see is that there could be impacts to the built form. There could be impacts to the dwelling size, and potentially, if not enough frontage, impact to the landscape area. Next slide, please. So this here is a single unit dwelling with 2 ADUs. This shows no garage. So it was the option 4 to my recollection. No garage, reduced front yard landscaped area would be required. So as you can see, the landscaped area in the front yard is only 8.3%. It is a lot of driveway, a lot of concrete here, and would deter a 3-unit or single unit dwelling with 2 ADUs in this application. Next slide, please. So this rendering here shows a single unit dwelling with 2 ADUs. Again, no garage, but it does show a different type of layout for the dwelling. It does reduce floor space on the main floor. It could also encourage building up rather than out. Could be done. The landscape area, I believe in this instance is met, parking is met, but it just reduces that floor space on the main ground and builds up. Next slide, please. So this rendering here shows a semi-detached with 2 ADUs. This application, or sorry, this rendering does showcase that it would require a reduction in front yard landscaping and potential impact to the number of units and floor space. Next slide, please. And again, this rendering shows something very similar, reduced front yard for townhome dwellings with 2 ADUs per unit. Again, potential impact to the number of dwelling units if the parking could not be met, if the dwelling space could not be reduced, then floor space or the number of units would be impacted. Next slide, please, and next slide, please. So in conclusion, administration's recommendation is to initiate the zoning bylaw amendment process to increase that requirement to 2 spaces for the main dwelling unit, to improve garage space dimensions, as well as to continue allowing garage spaces to be used towards meeting those requirements. Overall, this recommendation, we believe, recognizes the town's reliance on vehicles, adjusts standards to reflect demand, retains flexibility through garage parking, avoids changes that would unnecessarily constrain housing supply, and also preserves the town's broader housing and planning policy objectives for intensification. The next steps, if council, next slide, please, yep. If council does direct to initiate the zoning bylaw amendment process, would be public and stakeholder consultation. We have bounced the idea of an online survey and then providing council with a consultation summary. We believe it is important to not only consult with the public, but also the developers and the builders who would be directly impacted by these changes. Following that consultation summary preparation, we would host a statutory public meeting, provide notice, of course, and then provide council with a draft ZBA for your decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Chadwick. That was very comprehensive. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, and through you, Madam. Almost called you Warden. Madam Mayor. Just a quick question on, looking through the diagrams, in the one diagram, you've got 2 cars in the garage. Are you counting 2 spots then in that garage? No, it's just 1 spot.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. I may defer to Mr. Auspices in just a minute. I think I've got this question. If Ms. Phoenix wants to bring up a rendering. So the light brown just showcases to council and some of those renderings. Yeah, we'll just flip. Here we go. It's not feasible to have 2 tandem parking spaces in a garage. And so it really kind of, we thought maybe a carport or reducing the space of, rather the floor space of a dwelling.
I'm referring to the image, go back, the very first one, where it shows 2 cars inside the garage. Would that count as 2 spaces or 1 space based on your report?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, I thought I was referring to something else. Thank you. 2 spaces. It would count as 2 spaces.
Thank you. I like the report. I like the additional parking that we're looking at adding. I would like it if we only counted that garage space as 1 space. I think that would be more feasible, because then, I mean, the reality is he's got to be able to get in and out of that parking garage. So if there's 1 car, he can maybe weasel around it, and it would make a little more sense and more functional. As for theoretical, is great, but it's not functional. It just doesn't work in real life scenarios.
Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thanks through the chair. I'm not happy with any of the options here. All of your options with, except for whatever's on slide 17, show tandem parking. And tandem parking is one of the reasons why one of the reasons why I wanted this looked at. If you have an ADU and if you have 2 ADUs and a permanent residence and they're tandem parked, you might have to knock on 2 people's doors just to get your vehicle out of the driveway or out of the garage. So the only option, if we were going to decide today, and we're not going to, is whatever you have on slide 17 showing all the parking, getting rid of your entire front yard and just having a parking lot in the front. That's the only way that this would work. I was really hoping that there would be a different, I don't know, a different idea or proposal, rather than putting a car in a garage and then parking your ADU vehicle right out front of it. So that way you can't get out of your garage and then no one's using that garage. They're only going to use the street parking. This works fine if it's a simple residential home. And that's not the reason why we're visiting this. We're visiting this because we're now allowing up to 2 ADUs on a property, and that's what's causing the issue. It's not the issue with a single family dwelling. It's not an issue with simple duplex. The issue is a duplex with multiple ADUs. And how do you fix the parking that way? The only property that I've seen that fits the bill is the ones, I think on Michael, is it Michael or Kelly? Where they're 3 stories high. It's parking just like you have on slide 17. It's the only option. They don't have a garage. It's 3 apartments. They're 3 stories high and all of the parking is right out front. And in those parking spaces, I think there's 3. There's actually room for 2 vehicles per parking space. So each unit has 2 parking spaces per unit, which is beautiful. Those properties are ideal. I'm disappointed that something like that did not come to this bylaw proposal. So I would like to see it come back. I'd like to see something different, something similar to what I'm describing, because I want the rest of council to remember, we're not talking about a single family home or a simple duplex. We're talking about a duplex with 2 to 3 ADUs in it. How are you getting those vehicles out if we're allowing tandem parking and this bylaw doesn't address tandem parking?
Director Chadwick, and then I see Jesse has his hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you to Councilor McGuire Blaze. I'm sure Jesse and maybe Rita might want to add. So the Planning Act does require that ADUs parking spaces for ADUs be allowed in tandem. That is not something that a municipality can override. It must be permitted. And so we worked, to showcase to council what that could look like in real life.
Jesse, did you want to speak?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I have the same comment. The Planning Act is clear. The tandem parking is permitted for ADUs. Municipalities don't have any control over that.
Okay, thank you. And maybe we could reiterate again, the provincial government has mandated that 3 of right. That's not us. Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Thanks through the chair. If that is a provincial regulation, then my recommendation would be no garage parking is allowed. Give us two parking spaces with no garage parking.
Councilor Guerin.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, the garage thing really baffles me. I mean, just looking at my subdivision, my road, 8 houses, all have garages. Back in the day when they built those homes 35 years ago, there's enough parking spots for 4 cars in each garage, in each driveway, plus the garage. In my whole subdivision, there's probably 50, 60 homes. I don't think anyone uses a garage. I mean, I know nobody uses a garage. Question to administration. If somebody lives in a home with a 2-car garage or a 1-car garage, can a person go in and get a permit to change the garage to a living space?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you to Councilor Guerin. So it would require a slew of review. The applicant can certainly come to both the planning or the building counter to inquire if if the conversion would meet the zoning bylaw regulations for things like parking, for things like setbacks, for things just off the top of my head. There's also a strict building code requirements to convert any space into residential housekeeping for things like fire separation, for ingress and egress, emergency access, et cetera. So it's not just doable, it would require, is there a zoning regulation that prohibits that, Rita? No zoning regulation. It would be done during a building permit and planning review.
So further that, yeah, so there are quite a few of them that are converted, no garage doors, bay windows, maybe illegal, maybe not legal. The thing about it is we don't have anything prohibiting someone from having to park or not having to park in the garage. We don't have a stipulation that says you have a 2-car garage and you must park in your garage. Well, you have a driveway that you can fit 4 vehicles on it, but you got 1 in it and 2 of them on the road. So we have nothing that stops anyone from doing what they're doing. Matter of fact, if you took the roof off a garage, I mean, then you basically have a driveway. So I understand that point of it, but to think that we can use that garage space in Canada has a parking space, I think we're fooling ourselves. No one is. And it's really bad when you have 1-car garages and narrow driveways and you have 3-bedroom homes. But that's why we're doing this. We're going through the exercise of doing it. There's so many variations now with the what's permitted on your property and adding additional dwellings. It's difficult, but I don't like the tandem, but I understand provincially it's mandated and you can do it. So I just don't know about the garage, especially in the when you start getting into like the homes we built in behind Canadian Tire that are townhouses and 1-car garages and could barely park a car in the driveway, let alone get it in the garage. So there's no street parking.
Thank you, Councilor Guerin. Director Chadwick, is it possible for us to bring multiple options to the public into developers for feedback?
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly, council can initiate the zoning bylaw amendment process. We wanted to provide council with the options in our recommendation, our professional recommendation, of course, looking at various impacts and issues with each option. So we thought it would also really streamline public consultation and streamline consultation with the builders and the developers, rather than give options.
Thank you. I think it's such a technical thing. I think that if we don't give options, we're going to be back doing it in another year. I feel like personally, I feel like we should give options to people. For example, in my subdivision, I have an ADU, and when people come visit, there's street parking, and there is a neighbor that has is literally spray painted the road in front of his driveway to ensure that people who visit do not cross over that, and he will call the police. So like we have to go out there to the residents, into the community, and say, do you use your garage as parking? How many vehicles on your road is acceptable? Like, what is acceptable? I think we need to present more than one option. That's just my thought, because every consequence or every action has a reaction. So it could have a bad development action, but what kind of communities do we live in? At the same time, we need to get used to seeing more vehicles parked on roads. We're not used to seeing more vehicles parked on roads. We are going to see more people renting a room out of a house. That's the reality. People cannot afford to pay their rent. We're going to see their children move out and they move in people to rent rooms. We're going to see more street parking. We just have to wrap our head around that. So, yeah, I don't know. Personally, I'm looking for direction from council on what you would like to do. I'd like to bring more than one option forward and hear from the community. Then the community owns the bylaw and not just us. Councillor McGuire, please.
Through the chair, I don't mind bringing a motion forward, but at this point, I'm not happy with any of this. So I feel like we need to have administration bring us back something that we're at least happy with, and then provide them with, like, can we ask that?
CEO Jurcevic.
Through the chair, so it is a professionally prepared report. So I think what they could do is include or provide further information on your request, right? The impacts of it and so forth, but they won't amend their professional opinion.
Okay, thanks for that. So are we passing the actual bylaw? No, we're initiating it. Okay. So I would like to direct administration to initiate the zoning bylaw process to increase the requirement of 2 parking spaces for the main dwelling unit for low density residential uses, not including garage space. Is that what I'm doing? Yes, not including the garage space dimensions, not improving it. So not including the garage. I don't want to include the garage. And I would also like to review and reconsider section 11.7 of the zoning bylaw, where the town currently allows the reduction of vehicle spaces for every 4 bicycles parking spaces provided.
Okay, thank you. I need a seconder, Councillor Mady. So we're going, Director Chadwick, do you want to?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. If I may just seek clarification, so to not provide options to the public to initiate the ZBA for 2 spaces, no garage spaces to be permitted, and to review section 11.7.
Okay, thank you. So this means that we're only going to present I want to see clarification for myself, and maybe other members of council as well. So this means we're only going to present to the public that we will not allow parking in garages anymore. Is that the way I understand it?
That's correct. That's the ZBA would be drafted accordingly, and public consultation would be drafted accordingly.
Director Malinjuku.
Yeah, so through the chair, I just wanted to provide some clarification. So if you look at the second part of the proposed motion, I think what we're doing is removing the last part of the line after the comma that says, and to continue allowing garage spaces to be used towards meeting parking requirements. So I think that's a change that we're looking for, just to clarify for council.
Yeah, CEO Jurcevic.
Through the chair, I would just see if Councillor McGuire Blaze would be willing to ask that a report accompany it, just on the impacts of such request. So as of right now, we haven't done any analysis on what that could mean. We could also then circulate that to developers and everyone else just to see what the impact is. Right now, we don't have that information.
Director Chadwick?
Yeah, Mayor Bondi, through you, Mayor Bondi, CEO Drusevich indicated there has been preliminary analysis as a part of the study. So the study does analyze impacts to no longer requiring garage spaces and increasing to 2 spaces per main dwelling unit. It does, as indicated in our report and presentation, reduce the likelihood of increasing the number of units per lot. It does pose a significant physical site constraints, et cetera.
Okay, to me, the size of the garage matters too. Like, if you have a 2-car garage, chances are you might put 1 car in there. I know the girl's dad does, but my 1-car garage, I'm not putting anything in there. So I'm just wondering how best to go about this. Because I'm in agreement that the garage shouldn't count, but in some places the garage may be big enough to count. Deputy Mayor Shepley? Sorry, I'll go Deputy Mayor then.
Just got a quick question. I think if I heard you correctly, if we eliminate the garage, we take a chance of removing the ability to have the 4 wide based on our lot widths. So then we wouldn't be able to have the ADUs. What happens in that case if it's provincially allowed, but we're saying you can't because of a parking space? Does that then go to some sort of a tribunal where they could figure that out and then overrule us?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Deputy Mayor. Could I speak to the garage space requirements? So just quickly on the garage dimensions. So as a part of a recommendation, if you recall, the garage space parking requirement 18 by 11.5, we do recommend increasing that current parking space. So if a garage space could not fit those new dimensions, then really maybe it only is 1 space. So to answer your question to Deputy Mayor, the constraints could lead to potential increase in minor variance applications. It could mean a potential impact to permeability and stormwater impacts to the neighborhood. It could also lead to decreased residential intensification opportunities, which could then lead to not meeting our county mandate to increase residential intensification up to 30%, or sorry, by 30% in our settlement areas. So it comes with a lot of impacts.
CEO Drusevich?
Through the chair. So just to summarize, Director Chadwick, that was all noted within the report, correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other member of council wishing to speak? So we go out to the public, we get this information, we may, at the end of the day, we may or may not still change it. Okay, all right, so passing it doesn't mean we're necessarily changing it. Because I think we should do some consultation with the builders, the realtor group, and affordable housing groups. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, I just want to know the consequences and also how it would fit into our climate action change plan. Because I'm not opposed to it, I just want to know all the consequences. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? We have 1 opposed. That's carried. Okay. Development services, site-specific zoning bylaw amendment. Oh, we already did that one. Beach roads. All right. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the beach roads report be received. I'm going to get a mover and a seconder and then we'll discuss. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady, Director Gerard.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and through you. So this report is in response to council's resolution to outline the current process and policy for upgrading municipally owned but not assumed beach roads in the Colchester area. Simply put, the nomenclature from the report of owned and unassumed roads refers to roads that are legally owned by the town, but were never formally assumed by the bylaw because they were not constructed to municipal standards. Many originated as cottage area roads and have historically received only limited maintenance. As approved in June of 2024, council has already adopted the local improvement process under OREG 586 as the appropriate mechanism for these types of upgrades. Under that process, residents may petition for improvements, and if successful, the full cost of bringing the road up to town standards would be assessed to the benefiting property owner. Once completed, the town would then assume the road and take on future maintenance and asset replacement responsibilities. The report also notes that if council wishes to consider upgrading one beach road annually through the budget process, administration recommends retaining an engineering consultant to review the feasibility, cost, land needs, infrastructure requirements, and prioritization criteria, with a preliminary engineering cost in the estimated range of $200,000 to $400,000. The recommendation before council this evening is simply that the report be received. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gerard. Before I open it up to council, this has been a really popular question. I'm wondering if this report can go on our capital plan, or can it go on our website where we can easily find it? I'll leave that to you guys, but it would be great if we could find this, because we get this question all the time and we're going to probably get it more. Questions, comments from members of council? I think this is something that we'll have to bring forward in our new term, in our strategic plan, and see how far we can get. Councillor Mady.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. When you say bring it to town standards, what does that mean? What does town standards mean for a road?
Thank you. Through the chair. So our development standards manual sets the standard. We recognize that not every beach road will be able to reach that standard. We do have different sets of standard depending on the situation. So we have an urban cross section that would be usually built up in only primarily urbanized settings. And we also have like a semi-urban standard, a rural standard. So we have different standards that we can apply. They would surely include things like sidewalks, drainage, hard surfacing the road, those types of improvements, as well as assessing whether lands can be taken or should be taken in order to facilitate more town infrastructure, such as street lighting or pedestrian utility or facilities like sidewalks. So a lot of these beach roads were given to the town, and they were very small cross sections. So they may only be able to just fit the road, but they wouldn't be able to fit a standard sidewalk or even drainage for that matter. The other piece of that as well is each one of these, I'll say neighborhoods, also requires an assessment for what those drainage improvements may look like, which would require the town to facilitate the drainage improvements and likely push forward with a section 78 on each one of those neighborhoods if council were to want to move forward with improvements, which the impacts of that were delivered to council in an earlier report this year. So there's a lot here to factor in. I think the key here is also that it's a large dollar figure for the engineering costs, and a lot of thought went into it's a large range, but a lot of thought went into what that would look like. And the rationale is how we got there was that you have to imagine that each one of these developers, when they developed these neighborhoods, they had to pay engineering costs. They never paid the full cost of engineering those types of improvements. So now if we were to proceed with doing that, we would have to go and look at each one of those, I believe it's 14 neighborhoods, and do a conceptual engineering design for each one of these. We would need an engineer to help us create a scheme and a criteria for how we would prioritize those roads. So there's a significant amount of effort that has to go into looking at this. In essence, you're looking at like a beach roads master plan, because you're going to have to set some type of criteria to determine which one should happen and when they should happen, and then what exactly that engineering feasibility would be. So it's a significant amount of work that we wouldn't be able to undertake in-house. But the numbers there for council if you wanted to, push this into deliberations or consider it for a future.
I like the sound of a beach roads master plan. So given those constraints that we know that some of those roads aren't going to be wide enough to ever hit one of our standards, let alone be able to put sidewalks on it, let alone be able to relocate third-party utilities. Is there any hope for those residents to have a road put in then? Like,
Yeah, through you. I mean, it's very similar to the drainage process, right? We can provide the options to those residents and let them know what it would take in order for them to get the improvement. And like I said, that improvement may not be everything that hits the town standard, but everything that we can get up to that point. And that's why we would need some type of engineering analysis to tell us what that point is and what we could fit in there feasibly without having, without having major impacts, and also being able to consult them on what they would want. And that local improvement process would allow them to do that. I think the hope is that if everybody or a majority of the people along that neighborhood want to see improvements and they're willing to pay for it, that is the hope. So they hope they come to the town, they initiate a petition through the local improvement process, and then that kind of sets the framework for how we would address this road. And we could that would allow us to hire the engineer to do an individual assessment of that neighborhood for drainage and infrastructure improvements. And then it's presented just like the Drainage Act to those residents about what that improvement would look like and how much it would cost each one of them.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. So, if one of those roads was to initiate some drainage work, would we be able to get the engineering study done at that time as part of the drainage work too, on what the road would need to become to a town standard road?
Through you, that's a great question. I think that there's definitely opportunity if a neighborhood was looking to do drainage improvements to also undertake the local improvement process. There would be some economies of scale that could occur there, especially from an engineering perspective. So I would say that if a neighborhood was looking to improve their drainage, that we could have a conversation about what that local improvement process looked like. I wouldn't want to muddy the water too much, because I think that if people are going down the route of municipal drainage, they have a drainage issue, and I wouldn't want the local improvement process to hinder the benefit of a drainage project. So there would have to be some extensive conversations about what that neighborhood wants. Whether it was the Drainage Act process or the local improvement process, there would always be like significant consultation and discussions with that neighborhood through whether it be the drainage on-site meeting or the statutory meetings that we would have through the local improvement process. But we would always consider the opinion of that neighborhood of utmost importance. And I think we would offer those opportunities to them if they were available.
Thank you. Good questions, Councilor Mady. Any other questions? Director Gerard, do you hear from a lot of owned but not assumed residents? Or is it primarily kind of the same ones, or are there a lot of residents reaching out to you?
Yeah, through the chair, I would say that the majority of discussions that we have for beach roads are related more to drainage and to flooding concerns and just general drainage overall. In my time here, I would say that the majority of questions are related to road improvements and only road improvements. So, a resident reaching out, it's always owned but not assumed roads, because those roads are always to a lesser standard. But generally it's just about getting the road resurfaced and replaced, instead of with gravel, with going to an asphalt or a tar and chip road. But that's significant investment from the town. And our policy that's set by council for decades has been to maintain these roads to a minimum standard until they've been brought up to town standards. So, yeah, so I would say that's generally, I only hear from owned but not assumed, and it's usually related to drainage, but sometimes road improvements.
Okay, thank you. We do have a mover and a seconder already. So at this time, all in favor? Receiving? Opposed? That's carried. Moving on to results of request for tender for vacuum sweeper truck, looking for a mover and a seconder. That council award the request for tender to Ekpoke North American in the amount of $559,817.38. Moved by Councilor Verbeek, supported by Councilor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? So Director Gerard, are we going to have 2 street cleaners now?
If council wants to approve that, I'll take a second one. I'm sure our public works department would be happy, but no, the intention is to surplus the old sweeper and purchase the new one.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Hammond?
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. Mr. Gerard, do we know what, how many hours we got out of our last, or our current, do we know what operating hours we've gotten out of our current sweeper?
Through the chair, I don't have that information readily available, but I can.
But it is
certainly
available, is it?
Circulate, I can circulate it to council, tomorrow. or this
I'm
week.
definitely interested in see what kind of bang a week buck we're getting for these, $2.5 million sweepers. So, huh? Oh, excuse me, 500,000. What was the 2.5 million price tag is?
Okay, any other questions? Any other questions, Counselor Meady?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So our street sweeper just got a repair done to it. We had to import a part here from across the pond. So is ours going to be good enough to keep running until we get this new one? And once we get the new one, is there any reason why we can't keep both of them running until one breaks again and then put it to pasture?
Through the chair, so let's call it the old sweeper. The old sweeper is up and running. You will see it around town. It is trying to get caught up on some of the sweeping that was missed while it was down. But it is running. We can run both sweepers for a little bit. We do have to surplus it this year because it is part of our financial plan as part of the capital budget. But from what I understand is that if council does approve the street sweeper, we should receive it relatively quickly. I guess there's an exact model that we spec'd in the area, so we could receive it as soon as 2 to 3 weeks.
Any other member of council have any questions? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Moving on to our special event resource team update for the month of June. Looking for a mover and a seconder on this report. Lots of fun things going on. Councilor McGuire Blaze, Deputy Mayor Shepley, any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to reports from our youth members. Mr. Foster?
All right, so the Junior Optimist Club of Essex is hosting a volleyball tournament upcoming on what date? June 13th. It is open to all ages from 13 to 19. It is free. It's a doubles tournament in Maidstone, so come on out.
Through the chair, for the first time in a long time, the Essex Youth Center is back open and running this summer. So they'll be open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day for free activities and things for youth to do. Additionally, registration for the Fun Fest Hot K is open. I encourage everyone to sign up. And finally, Essex High School hosted their grad barbecue today. So all of our graduating seniors had a free lunch and activities out with their classmates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's exciting about the youth center. I look forward to seeing that this summer. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the county council highlights be received. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councilor Meady. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Correspondence in 13.1 to 13.6. Looking for a mover and a seconder. We'll receive it all and pull out any that we wish to talk about. Councilor Meady, Councilor Hammond, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. Any members of council wish to pull out any? I'd like to, and then I'll go to Director Morrissoot for an explanation on 13.1.6, unless that's yours. Okay, Councilor Meady wants us to talk about 13.1.6.
Thank you, Mayor Bundy. So last year, the administration was notified that the harbor was not going to receive federal funding for projects that we have on an annual basis we've applied for. So last December, council did, through notice of motion, authorize administration to send a letter to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Small Craft Harbors, to seek further funding. And they did reevaluate, and they are going to provide us some funding for this upcoming year. It's unclear if we are going to be receiving funding on an annual basis, as there is an annual reapplication process. But this is good news for at least this year, and we're going to continue to work with Small Craft Harbors going forward. And we have the lease with them is coming up in the next couple of years. So it's going to be a topic that we want to try and negotiate as further lease agreements if council wants to pursue that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hammond.
Yes, through you. Is it possible to send a letter to the Fisheries and Oceans and thanking them for the kind donation and letting them know that we'll be using it to secure the safety of our shared harbor?
Yes, of course, we can. We'll take that as direction. Councillor Hammond?
Can we move on to 13.15? Yes, I'd like to support the Windsor Essex County and Health Unit with their objections to the being your own booze legislation that's being presented. I think it's definitely a bad thing for everybody involved.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond, and I think the town did put out a statement on social media, so it's status quo until a member or group lobbies council to change it. Any other items? Okay, moving on, 13.2.1, the Association of Municipalities Ontario. We have a Board of Directors nomination form. Looking at this, that the Board of Directors nomination form be received from the AMO, received and support. Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions? Thank you. Councillor, do you have a question? Just thank him. Thank you for stepping up, Deputy Mayor, and good luck. Councillor Hammond?
I too want to thank Deputy Mayor for stepping up and good luck. I hope things work out for you.
Thank you. Find a way for us to proxy vote for you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you to council for the support. I appreciate it.
Okay, all in favor? It's carried unanimously. Committee meeting minutes, we have Coan Park, Arts, Culture, Tourism, Essex Center, BIA, Committee of Adjustment, and Essex Festival. Moved by Councillor Guerin, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. And I do have a question. I did see today that we're advertising for the Arts, Culture, Tourism on our Facebook. It does seem a little late in the term, so there should be a reason. It's probably related to quorum. Director Malandruclo?
Yeah, through the chair, that this was our third this person who's now resigned means that we have 3 vacancies, so they're having a problem finding quorum. So we're going to try and fill those spots so that we can fill quorum more easily.
If something happens and we can't fill quorum, could we revise the terms of reference to reduce the committee members temporarily till the end of the term? Like, it does seem kind of late in the term to have members join, just to join for like 2 or 3 meetings. Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity for some of us council members, if we have time, to fill in until we potentially find somebody? So I would be interested in helping out in the meantime till they could fill those seats.
Through the mayor. So part of the reason why we are seeking additional members is because this is an active committee. So there are job duties that they actually do as part of events. So that's part of the reason why the workload has become too heavy for the shortage of members. And in terms of quorum, I don't think the quorum is an issue because it's 50%. But if there's comments, I'll let Director Malandruclo comment on it.
Thank you. I try to go to committees every once in a while, and I went to the last ACT committee, and I was the deciding factor in quorum, and I'm not a working member. So, but thank you. Okay, we'll see if we get any. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. We have notices of motion. We have Councillor McGuire Blaze, so I'll go to Director Malandruclo to read it.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you. The following notice of motion was deferred at the November 3, 2025 regular council meeting and is being brought forward tonight for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Whereas at its August 13, 2025 meeting, the Essex Center Business Improvement Area passed a motion providing direction to Councillor McGuire Blaze to request that Town Council commission an on-street parking report. Now therefore that council direct administration to evaluate existing and potential time limitations for on-street parking within the Essex Center and Harrow Downtown Course.
Okay, thank you, Director Malandruclo. Moved by Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thanks for the chair. We already chatted about this 3 months ago, but we had put it on hold to allow administration and our team to make sure that the signage was all up. before we made a decision. Since I believe they determined signage is all up. It's been 3 months. We're still having issues in some areas. I think a report's necessary to move forward with more action.
Any other member of council? Deputy Mayor?
I'm just wondering, is that, I wonder if Director Gerard could speak to that. Is all our signage up, or is it mixed match and needs to be updated?
Through you, through the chair, yeah, we can certainly prepare a report. When we did the review of the signage, we did find a few conflicting, or maybe two conflicting signs that were removed as part of the exercise. While we did it, we also did a comprehensive survey of the limitations of all the parking restrictions in that area to prepare ourselves for a report. What I would ask for clarification, maybe from the mover and maybe even council as a whole, is maybe exactly what you would like administration to review. I think we have some suggestions that we could put together. But if we're talking about the time limitations of 2 hours, for instance, or if we're talking about the limitations from a monthly basis, or we also have some Friday restrictions, those types of things in our downtown core. Or if you're simply looking to adjust the 2-hour window to something shorter or longer, and also whether or not you want to extend those limitations. So right now, generally the 2-hour restriction is limited to the core area of Essex Center along Talbot. But if is council or have an appetite or looking to extend that to, further north or south along Talbot Street, those types of things, I think I have questions on, or that some direction would be fruitful in preparing a report.
Just a quick question. When you say downtown core, where does that exactly end? Because I know the public's vision might be at the Canadian Tire gas bar, but it's my understanding it extends down past Bryan Avenue. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair. So generally we use the streetscape theming plan as the basis for what we call the core. So I mean, generally we call the core area along Talbot from Cameron to Bryan, and then and also including a portion of Center, a portion of Wilson, a portion of Gordon, and Fox as well. And then we call the other areas transition areas. So that would be anything outside of the Bryan Ave all the way to Fairview, and then from Cameron to Maidstone would generally be the transition areas. The 2-hour parking restriction is not limited to the core area. So I can't tell you that our core area is where the 2-hour parking window is, because there is 2-hour parking that extends beyond those limitations. And it's been put into our parking bylaw sporadically to address issues over history. So the survey did reveal that there was, not some extreme consistencies with it. There's no issue with regulation, but it could be improved. There's certainly some improvements we could make, and there's certainly improvements that we could make from an operational standpoint as it relates to the streetscape. So for instance, when we sweep, we used to need to sweep into the parking spaces. And we needed cars to not be there to do that. Well, because of the streetscape, we don't necessarily need to do that, because we can sweep the curb right along the edge of the road. So there are some operational changes we can make, but as I mentioned, looking at some whether council wants to extend the 2-hour parking beyond its current limitations or current area, if there's an appetite to look at that, or if we want to provide some direction that's what you're looking for, or like I said, changing the 2-hour from 1 or 3 hours or whatever that may be. That would give us good direction to look at those types of things and provide recommendations based on them.
Thank you for that. I personally would like to see it extend to Bryan, and then down to Cameron and those side streets. I think whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours, I mean, that can be something council can determine, I think, through your report. But I think that will help most of the businesses that struggle for parking to not have those permanent parkers that stay there forever. By having any type of a time limit, whether it be 2 hours or 3 hours, it's going to encourage them to have to move their vehicle and not stay there parked permanently, which takes up those valuable real estate parking spots for us.
Any other member of council? Seeing none, all in favor? Oppose? That's carried. Moving on to reports and announcements from council members. It's been a long night. I'll keep it brief. We had a very successful charity yard sale, raised $8,200, lots of volunteers, lots of money to lots of organizations. And I do not want to hear the word yard sale for a year because I'll have some post-traumatic stress. So any members of council have an update? Seeing none? Oh, Councillor Hammond? Oh, and then Councillor Ruby.
I just wanted to address council and administration with some remarks I made on Friday evening. After a long day, I came home to more news and more work and lashed out at our clerk, and that was wrong. I suffer from ADHD, so going to school during segregation was hard enough, but I found myself a lot of times either in a corner, outside looking in, or down at the principal's office getting disciplined. The discipline of the day was corporal punishment. And you learn fast. And one of the things I learned back then at a very young age was that I forgot was not a suitable answer for anything. Now, after years of dealing with that, I've come to learn that it is okay to forget. And so I apologize to Mr. Del Duco. And I want to apologize to the mayor because she also stepped up and put me into my place and made me sit back and think about what I was doing. And so I commended her because I remembered on her first term and the sacrifices that she made. And, you know, it smartened me up. So I was up late last night and again early this morning to go through these 600 pages of reference that we had to endure tonight. And I hope everybody accepts my apology, and I hope it doesn't happen again.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. I'm sure your apology is accepted. I appreciate it. And I got the nod from Director Malajuklo. Any other reports, Councillor Barik?
Yes. So Coan Park, their main fundraiser for years and years was a really fun slow pitch co-ed ball tournament. And it fell by the wayside due to COVID, as so many do. About 3 years ago, we tried to bring it back. We didn't have a lot of pickup. So I would just want to announce that August 15th, it's up and running again. It's got a new spin. We are going to have 2 divisions, the one regular fun division, which maybe even council could put a team in, and another division with first responders. There's Windsor Police and several of the fire departments. I believe they're up to 8 first responder teams already, but we still need some just regular co-ed teams. It's going to be a real fun day. There's a lot of other things that we'll be having for family fun. And I hope you'll consider putting a team together or sharing the word with people you know can organize a team. That's August 15th at Coan.
Thank you, Councillor Rubik. Any other members of council? Okay, moving on, we have our bylaws. Bylaw 2534 being a bylaw to temporarily delegate certain authorities during the lame duck council period, to be read a third time and finally adopted on June 1st. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor Guerin. Any questions? All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2536 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the May 19th regular meeting of council, to be read a third time and finally passed. Moved by Councillor Verbeek and Councillor Allard. Any questions? All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2539 being a bylaw to amend the official plan for the town of Essex and the lands municipally owned as 47 Wilson, to be read a third time, finally passed. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any other questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2540 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 1037, the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the lands of the town of Essex municipally known as 47 Wilson, to be read a third and finally passed. Counselor McGuire Blaze, Counselor Verbeek, all in favor? It's carried. Bylaws that require first, second, third reading, bylaw 2545, being a bylaw to provide the issuance of a debenture in the amount of 39,000 for works completed on Little Drain Bridge replacement, to be read first, second, third time, and finally passed on June 1st. Counselor Mady, Counselor Garron, any questions? All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2538, being a bylaw to regulate the use of election signs within the geographic boundaries of the town of Essex, to be read a second and third time and finally passed on June 1st. Director Malajuklo, can you just highlight the changes, please? Okay, yes.
Thank you. Yes, to the mayor.
Good one.
Yeah, we're being clarified that this is a 3 reading bylaw that we're looking for tonight. Just wanted to make a couple quick notes. One of the notes is when we brought this bylaw the first time last meeting, we had a question about my authority to remove signs. So one of the things that I wanted to clarify is that the clerk's authority to remove signs, though it's provided to the clerk through provincial legislation, it is not, it can't be for every sign. It has to respect the rights of citizens under the Constitution. So it has to be constitutional. I can't remove any signs that someone has a constitutional right to post. So I wanted to mention that. Also, the amendment to the bylaw is to allow 2 signs on a corner lot. So if a candidate would like to put 2 signs on the corner lot, as long as they are, I think I put 3 meters away from each other and they're abutting different roads, they're allowed to put 2 signs on a corner lot.
And the 5 business days.
Sorry, through the chair, the last amendment that I forgot to mention is that we're allowing 5 business days for signs to be removed after the election.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Hammond, then Deputy Mayor Shepherd.
Yeah, so through you, Chair. A lot of times, signs are up there for several weeks and need to be moved periodically for landowners to cut their grass and stuff like that. Should a sign get misplaced, say, on a neighbor's property for a time being and forgotten to put back on its appropriate spot? What's the assurances that there's not going to be a fine or a penalty to the delegate that suffers that?
To your Councilor Hammond, that's a good question. So through the chair, like every one of our bylaws, our bylaw officers will look for voluntary compliance before issuing any fine. And with the sign bylaws, the way they'll start is they'll ask for voluntary compliance from the resident. If the resident doesn't comply, then we'll ask for voluntary compliance from the candidate. If the candidate doesn't comply, then we'll pursue charges against the candidate.
Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you through you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank the Director Malajuklo for the changes. I appreciate it. You answered all my questions from the other day and made the changes I was looking for. So I appreciate that. I'll support the bylaw.
Okay. Do we have a mover and a seconder? No, moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Counselor Verbeek. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Bylaw 2544, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the June 1st regular meeting of council, to be read a first, second time and provisionally adopted. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, Counselor McGuire Blaze. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried unanimously. And now at this point, we are going to move into closed meeting. Thank you for coming. It was a long one. Yeah, moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Counselor McGuire Blaze. All in favor? Thank you guys for hanging out. Have a good one. Okay. Council has come out of closed session. At this point, I need a motion to adjourn this. Councilor McGuire Blaze, Councilor or Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor? Have a good evening, everybody.